Chapter 622. Late at this moment, Luo Jiao was dressed in a large crimson master-teacher robe which looked magnificently beneath the lighting. He held a glass of fine wine in his hands as he glanced at the approaching group with a smile. From his appearance, it seemed as though he wasn't in the least bothered by Hongsha's actions earlier in the afternoon. Luo Jiao, what do you mean by that? Nothing much, I just feel that Hongfeng Empire has regressed too much. To think that even transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle cultivators could make it into the top 3. TSK, you're truly getting worse with each passing generation. Luo Jiao shook his head as he spoke. Both Bai Jianghai and Luo Xian had already reached consonant spirit realm, only Zhong Xian was still stuck in transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle. Zhong Xian also didn't intentionally hide his cultivation either, so Luo Jiao was able to notice it with a glance. While the 4 great vassal states might not be as powerful as Huanyu Empire, they had vast territories beneath it and countless geniuses. Often, those who managed to get into the top 3 would have already reached consonant spirit realm. Only a monster like Zhong Xian would be able to leave the competitors on the verge of breakdown despite possessing a lower cultivation. Seeing how the fellow was mocking Zhong Xian's low cultivation, Hongsha retorted, "What's wrong with transcendent mortal 4-dan? It's not like the master-teacher tournament revolves around strength. You're only saying this because you don't know how fearsome he is. Looks like Fengshe didn't tell you who the cause of his fall was. If you knew, you wouldn't have uttered so much nonsense." As old acquaintances, Hongsha had a clear gauge of Luo Jiao's fighting prowess. But even so, he had a hunch that if the other party and Zhongshe were to be locked in the cage, Zhongshe would surely be the one walking out alive. "Oh, you look very confident." Luo Jiao's lips curled up. "Just that, I wonder if you can maintain the same confidence you have after seeing my top 3 rankers." After which, he turned around and 3 young men came walking over. The aura of the trio was intensified and dampened as though a flickering light, but if one thing was for sure, none of them were weak. Consonant spirit realm intermediate stage? Hongsha frowned. "You gave them consonant spirit pills?" Consonant spirit pill was a grade 5 pill that allowed any consonant spirit realm cultivator to increase their cultivation by 1 small realm without any conditions or side effect. Only 5-star apothecaries are capable of forging this pill, and the quantity available was extremely limited. Of the entire region, only Huanyu Empire sold it. The bodies of the trio harnessed the violent energy reminiscent of a medicine. Clearly, they had achieved a breakthrough via consuming medicine. Furthermore, considering how they didn't possess full grasp of their strength, it shouldn't have been long since they made the breakthrough. Indeed, the cleansing lake nourishes one's soul, and as such, consonant spirit realm cultivators benefit the most from it. To think that there would be a person who hasn't even reached consonant spirit realm within your group. Given such, do you think that the Crown Prince would still give the slot to you? Luo Jiao chuckled lightly. The other 3 vassal states had come to the empire early and spent an exorbitant price to purchase consonant spirit pills. It was fortunate that they managed to obtain the pills before today, thus allowing their top 3 rankers to achieve a breakthrough. Even though there was only a step of difference between consonant spirit realm and clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle, there was a qualitative difference in the physical body and soul of both realms. As long as one hadn't reached consonant spirit realm yet, one would be unable to cultivate one's soul separately. Even if one were to enter the cleansing lake, the effects one could derive from it would be severely limited. Hongsha frowned. He had held the master-teacher tournament at the same time as the other 3 vassal states, but unfortunately, the tournament was held in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance this year, and the Myriad Kingdom Alliance was simply too far away from Huanyu capital. The others had already arrived in Huanyu capital earlier and made preparations in advance. In comparison, his group looked unready. The Crown Prince hasn't announced the rules for determining the distribution of the slots yet. Besides, so what if your men have reached consonant spirit realm intermediate stage? It's still too early to see who will have the last laugh. Even though Hongsha was worried, he couldn't possibly lose out in a fight of guts. "Seeing how you're so confident, I'll look forward to your performance later." Luo Jiao chuckled before bringing the 3 men of his group back to the hall with a wineglass in hand. "Humph." Hongsha flung his sleeves angrily. He knew the other party was intentionally coming over to show off, but he still couldn't hold back his anger. Taking a deep breath, Hongsha turned to the young man beside him and said, "Zhongsha, don't think too much into it." "Me? I'm fine." Not expecting to be looked down upon and consoled due to his low cultivation realm, Zhongxian chuckled. "Right, did you fight him in a master-teacher confrontation earlier this afternoon? He did challenge me, but didn't you tell me not to accept it?" Hongsha looked at Zhongxian in confusion. Zhongsha had analyzed the situation he would encounter if he were to confront the trio. The suffered grievous injuries, won't be able to fight for the next 10 years was actually a work of the young man before him. Otherwise, how could an upright person like him possibly think of such downright shameless words? Both he and you are transcendent mortal 6th-dan primary stage cultivators, so there isn't a huge gap between your strength. It's hard to tell who would win, so it was indeed unwise for you to accept his challenge back then. But now, the situation is different. Zhongxian chuckled. Different? Hongsha was taken aback. What was different about the situation? It had only been a few hours since then, his cultivation hadn't advanced, and Luo Jiao didn't grow weak either. "I'm here, so you don't have to worry about facing him. I can guarantee your win," Zhongxian said calmly with pride and confidence. "What you mean is that, you'll guide me in my battle against him?" Hongsha was taken aback for a moment before his eyes lit up. "Yuan." Zhongxian's lips crept up. "You actually dare to mock my cultivation? Fine, let's have Hongsha beat you to the point that even your own father won't recognize you. Consonant spirit realm intermediate stage, huh? When your teacher is reduced to a pig head, let's see whether you can get gleeful." "All right." Hongsha nodded his head. While this young man's master teacher rank was lower than his, the other party had an 8-star master teacher as his teacher. Not to mention, he had witnessed the other party's capability in giving pointers, and he could tell that he wasn't a match for the other party. With the other party's help, his chances at defeating Luo Jiao would be increased by exponentially. "Let's go in." After a moment of discussion, the group of 4 entered the banquet hall. As expected of the Crown Prince's palace, the decorations were elaborate, and countless night illumination pearls lit up the room as though it was day. Resplendent carpets were laid on the floor, beautiful wallpapers brought elegance to the room, and many lush potted plants breathed life into the area. On the whole, the entire hall was extravagant and majestic, and its unique aesthetics were pleasant to the eyes. The Crown Prince possesses incredible talent. He managed to become a 4-star master teacher in his 20s, thus becoming the #1 genius of the younger generation of Huanyu Empire. Thus, my teacher took him in as his student and sent him to the Master Teacher Academy. Hongsha sent a message over telepathically. As such, he's highly favored by the emperor. As if to reflect that, the scale of the Eastern Palace is on par with the Royal Palace, and its design is even more elaborate than the latter. "Yuan." Zhongxian nodded. Of all of the palaces he had been to, there was none that could compare to this Eastern Palace. On top of murals, there were also many works from famous painters hung on the wall, causing spiritual energy to linger in the air. Not only so, upon entering the hall, they immediately felt the temperature change to a soothing level. There should be a temperature-regulating formation set up here. It seemed like the talented master teacher of a crown prince was highly favored by the emperor. Walking along the soft carpet, they saw 2 sets of table and chairs were placed at the 2 sides of the vast hall, probably reserved for the members of the 4 great vassal states. Luo Jiao and his group were seated on one of them. Feng Shu, who was nearly shattered to smithereens from falling from a high altitude, was present too. However, his injuries seemed to be much more severe than before. His cheeks were swollen red, and he looks extremely fragile at the moment. This was probably Hongsha's work. The only reason why he could remain seated without any problems was probably due to the consumption of some kind of incredible recovery pill. But even so, he looked drained, a complete contrast from his gleeful self earlier this morning. "This is Feng Shu." Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai stared at one another in astonishment. Just earlier this morning, this man was stood majestically on the back of a spirit beast as he blocked Hongsha's passageway. While he was an enemy, they had to admit that there was an air of grandness around him. However, With a word from Zhongshe, he plummeted from the skies, reduced to such a state. Recalling what had been said just earlier on, they solemnly swore that even if they had to offend everyone in the world, they would never offend Zhongshe. Ignoring Feng Shui, Zhongxian turned his sight toward the other master teachers in the room. Just as Luo Zhao said, the top 3 rankers from Fengyuan Empire, Qianfeng Empire, and Zhuyu Empire had all reached Consonant Spirit Realm. In fact, there was even one who had reached Consonant Spirit Realm Advanced Stage. In terms of cultivation, Zhongxian indeed ranked at the bare bottom. Other than the members from the 4 great vassal states, there was a young man seated at the main table placed in the center. He was drinking alone, forming a stark contrast to the others in the room. That man was wearing a robe, and 5 bright stars shone from the Master Teacher emblem pinned on his chest. 5-star Master Teacher? Zhongxian was stunned. Turning to Hong Shu, he asked, "Is this the Crown Prince?" "He's not the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince is only a half 5-star Master Teacher. That person is probably his senior from the Master Teacher Academy. Based on what I know, he must either be Xing Yuan or Wu Zhan," Hong Shu replied. He had learned the names of the 4 guests from the Master Teacher Academy. Given that the person seated there was a man, it was impossible for him to be the 6th princess or Luo Chichi. Thus, he had to be either Xing Yuan or Wu Zhan. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to be seated so casually on the same table as the Crown Prince. "Xing Yuan or Wu Zhan?" Zhongxian asked. "Yuan, there are a total of 4 guests from the Master Teacher Academy, and 2 of the 5-star Master Teachers go by those names," Hong Shu explained. After which, he gestured the group to a table and said, "Since the Crown Prince isn't here yet, let's take a seat." From the information they received from the guard, they learned that the Crown Prince had gone over to invite the 6th princess and the rest of the group. Hong Shu, considering the distance between Huanyu Empire and Myriad Kingdom Alliance, we won't say anything about your prior tardiness. However, you should have arrived in the capital this morning already. To keep Wu Shu waiting and only arrive at this late hour, don't you think you're being a little too disrespectful? Right after the group got seated, an impassive voice suddenly sounded in the air. It was an elder seated opposite to them. The 5-star Master Teacher leading Zhuyu Empire's group, Chen Yu. Hearing his words, Hong Shu frowned in displeasure. His voice wasn't exceptionally loud, but it was sufficient so for everyone in the room to hear. This, of course, included Wu Shu, who was drinking at the main table. If he were to admit his tardiness, considering how he arrived later than the esteemed guest from the Master Teacher Academy, that would be no different from admitting to a breach of etiquette. Given so, he would surely leave a bad impression with the other party. On the other hand, given that he had indeed arrived later than Wu Shu, if he were to attempt to dispute the fact, the results wouldn't be any better either. It could be said that those words had put Hong Shu into a deadlock. What should he do? Hong Shu's face darkened as he struggled to search for a reply. However, at that moment, he suddenly heard something, and his body stiffened. Following which, his eyes lit up, and he turned to look Chen Yu in the eye. "Chen Yu, please mind your words. This is just a banquet, a place that fosters camaraderie and harmony. To be talking about tardiness here. Are you going to blame the Crown Prince for arriving late later on as well?" Chapter 623, 2 different evaluations. Hearing those words, everyone was awed. Master Teacher Chen Yu's question was clearly an attempt at soiling Hong Shu's reputation. And yet, Hong Shu actually managed to counterattack against such a difficult question. "You said that I was late. Fine. But even the Crown Prince isn't here yet. Are you going to blame him for the same as well? This is just a casual banquet, and yet here you are pointing fingers around. Let me ask you, what are you trying to do?" Not only did those words seamlessly respond to Chen Yu's accusation, it even left him in a difficult position. He could neither agree nor disagree with Hong Shu's words, and his face gradually reddened in frustration. He felt so stifled that he could spew blood at any moment. "Oh, it has only been a while since we last met, and Hong Shu has become much more eloquent than before." Seeing his alliance mate Chen Yu being placed in a difficult position, Luo Zhao stepped forward and intervened. "Not just so, my cultivation also advanced significantly in the past few days. Luo Shu, Would you like to give it a try? Hongsha filled his cup with fine wine as he glanced to the side. Don't you agree, Fengshe? You. Pu. Feng Yu's body staggered. In an instant, his injuries were triggered, and a mouthful of fresh blood spewed from his mouth. Didn't we agree not to talk about this matter? Why are you bringing it up now? Besides, they are the ones who are causing you trouble, not me. To think that I would still be shot despite sitting quietly in my corner over here. Fengshe was wounded by spirit beasts when he was out hunting a few days ago. He had been spending his time recuperating at his residence, so how could he possibly know how strong you are? Luo Zhao harumphed. Luo Zhao's words were indeed quite scathing. By saying that Fengshe was hurt by a spirit beast, he was hinting that Hongsha was no different from a vicious beast. So, he was hurt by a spirit beast. My condolences. Naturally, Hongsha could tell the insult hidden within the other party's words, but he paid it no heed. He glanced at Luo Zhao calmly and said, there are no clear cuts on his face, mostly swellings from region to region. The swellings on his face carry a tinge of redness amidst grey. This is a sign that Zhenqi was harnessed behind the attack. The bridge of his nose is slightly caved in, forming a straight line with his forehead. This is clearly the result of a kick. The slightly redder print that stretched from his ears down to his lips, that is obviously caused by a slap. These wounds are obviously caused by a human, and yet you claim that he was done in by a spirit beast. At this moment, a glint flashed across Hongsha's eyes as he continued, Luosha, may I ask if you're blind? Or have you learnt how to spout barefaced lies? You. Luo Zhao's face reddened, and he nearly fainted then and there. Master teachers possessed exceptional eyesight. There were distinctive differences between the wounds caused by a spirit beast and those caused by a human. The only reason why he said the words that he did was to change the subject and alleviate the awkwardness in the air. Who knew that Hongsha would point them out explicitly and claim that he was lying through his teeth? Luo Zhao's entire body trembled in rage, but he couldn't find a single word to say. If he were to claim that it was Hongsha who beat him up, the matter regarding them blocking the other party's passageway would be revealed as well. Damn it, hadn't words always been his weakness? When did he become so sharp-tongued? Everyone stared at one another in shock. Hongsha was way too formidable. Chensha and Luosha had worked together to corner Hongsha with their words, but they ended up being rendered speechless instead. What about me? Is there anything wrong with my words? Or could it be that the spirit beast that caused Fengshe's injuries refers to you, and you're feeling angry at having that pointed out by me? Hongsha replied impassively. Humph. Luo Zhao clenched his fists tightly. He was bubbling with rage, but he simply couldn't find the words to refute the other party's accusation. All right, enough. This is just a casual banquet, there's no need to make things so tense here. Seeing that Luo Zhao was about to explode from frustration, Chen Yu could only step in to mediate. Indeed, this is just a banquet. There's no need to go so far. Hongsha sipped on his wine. Damn it. Seeing Hongsha's attitude, Luosha and Chensha's face darkened. They intended to get back at Hongsha for wreaking havoc at their place so as to vent their frustrations before the start of the banquet. Who knew that before they could even lift up their legs, they were already kicked in the face? Furthermore, it was the type where their faces were stomped on viciously. The more they thought about it, the more frustrated they became. They quickly turned to the main table to check if they had inadvertently left a bad impression with that genius, but the latter simply continued drinking his wine nonchalantly, as though he hadn't heard the quarrel just a moment ago. That's good. Seeing that Wu Shi was paying no heed to their affairs, they heaved a sigh of relief. For some reason, this fellow's tongue is much sharper than before. There's no benefits to arguing with him. We should wait for the crown prince to arrive first. Knowing that they would only get more frustrated the more they argued with Hongsha, Luo Zhao, Chen Yu, and Feng Yu came to an agreement. And thus, the hall fell silent once more. While the group over here were harboring their own thoughts, in one of the courtyards within the Eastern Palace, a well-dressed young man stood patiently as he waited for someone. He seemed to have been standing there for quite some time now, but there wasn't the slightest impatience in his expression. On the contrary, he was smiling instead. If Hongsha were here, he would surely recognize the young man to be the crown prince of Huanyu Empire, Yi Qian. Damn it, It's all that fellow's fault. If not for him taking away my sorrow-severing grass, I wouldn't be in such a dilemma now. Xing Yuan, have you found out who that guy is? A furious complaint sounded. Following which, a beautiful figure walked into the courtyard. A slightly apologetic voice sounded. It came from the young man following behind the beautiful figure. It was the sixth princess and Xing Yuan whom Zhongxian met at the mystical treasure hall earlier. After leaving the mystical treasure hall, the sixth princess continued looking around to search for a sorrow-severing grass, but despite searching until now, her efforts were in vain. The more she thought about it, the angrier she felt. Sixth princess and senior Xing Yuan, the crown prince walked forward and bowed. Oh, it's great that you're here. I have something I need your help on, Xing Yuan said. Senior, feel free to instruct me, Yi Qian hurriedly said. In the day, sixth princess and I met a young man in mystical treasure hall. That young man is in his 20s, and he was walking around with a plump butler. Help me look into his identity and report back to me as soon as there's any result, Xing Yuan instructed. Yes. Yi Qian nodded. Even though the other party's description was very vague, considering that they were within Huanyu capital, it wasn't too difficult for Yi Qian, with his influence as the crown prince, to search for a single person. Sixth princess and senior Xing Yuan, I'll have this done immediately. Also, I've prepared a banquet for you tonight, and I would like to invite you over. At the same time, you can also meet the freshman Huanyu Empire will be sending over to the Master Teacher Academy this year. I'm not interested. The sixth princess waved her hands in annoyance. She was still a proud princess when she left the residence earlier this morning, but by the time she returned, she had become the maid of another man instead. Angry and humiliated, how could she possibly be in the mood to attend a banquet? Not expecting the sixth princess to reject his offer so directly, Yi Qian turned to look at Xing Yuan awkward. Senior, you. Oh, I'll return to my residence first. I'll be there in a moment. Xing Yuan waved his hands. All right. Seeing that the sixth princess was at the peak of her anger, Yi Qian bowed and left the courtyard. He might be the crown prince of Huanyu Empire, but his standing still paled far too much in comparison to the princess of Hongyuan Empire. The both of them weren't of the same standing at all. It would be a delight if the other party accepted his invitation, but even if that wasn't the case, he dared not push his case. Right before he was about to walk out of the courtyard, he heard Xing Yuan's voice echoing by his ear. Sixth princess is currently at the peak of her rage. I'll talk to her for a bit and come over with her later on. Thank you, senior. Hearing the other party's promise, Yi Qian's eyes lit up. The purpose of this banquet was to welcome the sixth princess and the others. If they were to skip out on this banquet, it would indeed be embarrassing on his part. Sixth princess, calm down. If we still aren't able to find a sorrow-severing grass, we can always purchase it from the young man back then after Yi Qian uncovers his identity. After Yi Qian left, Xing Yuan immediately hurried forward to console the sixth princess. This is none of your business. The sixth princess sat down angrily. Standing at the spot, Xing Yuan was at a loss. It didn't feel right for him to stay there, but leaving also felt wrong either. The sixth princess had an extremely eccentric temper that made it difficult for him to court her. She would be fine one moment and throwing a tantrum the next. As fickle as the weather, she often left him feeling puzzled. Honestly speaking, you were the one who agreed to become that lad's maid. I tried to persuade you against it, but you simply didn't listen. I even proposed to have him killed, but you turned that down too. And yet, here you are, throwing a tantrum before me and Yi Qian over that matter. What the heck is this? The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he felt. Yu Feiya, what's wrong? Just as Xing Yuan was at a complete loss, footsteps sounded from the outside, and a lady excitedly entered the room. There was a bright smile on her face, and she looked as though she was about to skip in joy. Lady Chichi, you. Looking at the other party's expression, Xing Yuan was dumbstruck. The lady before him, Luo Chichi, was known for her coldness. She would always keep a distant aura no matter whom she was speaking to. Why would there be such a bright smile on her face today? If those from the academy were to learn that this ice beauty was capable of smiling, would they go insane? It's nothing. Only upon hearing Xing Yuan's words did Luo Chichi notice the smile on her face. She swiftly reverted back to her usual cold expression before walking up to the sixth princess and asked, "What's wrong? Who made you so angry?" Princess Feiya was just about to speak, but she suddenly lifted her gaze to look at Luo Chichi with a frown. "Actually, I'm more interested in what happened to you for you to be so happy." She shared the same thoughts as Xing Yuan. Luo Chichi had always maintained a nonchalant expression in public. If she recalled correctly, the latter said that she was going to the apothecary hall to conduct a lecture. But if that was the case, there should be no reason for her to be so happy. This was contrary to her personality. "What happened to me? It's nothing much." Recalling Zhong Shi's dashing figure, a hint of respect gleamed in Luo Chichi's eyes, and her lips subconsciously crept up once more. "It's fine, you should speak first. I'm curious to see who can send our sixth princess to such a huge rage. It's all because of that shameless." But halfway through her words, Princess Feiya shook her head and smiled. "Wait. Why should I speak first? You should tell me who made our ice beauty Lady Chichi so happy first." Luo Chichi hesitated for a moment. "All right, why don't we speak together then?" "Fine." Princess Feiya nodded. "Now, it's a despicable, shameless, ignorant, and infuriating young rascal." Princess Feiya gritted her teeth in resentment. "It's a refined, magnanimous, intelligent, and awe-inspiring young talent." Luo Chichi spoke in admiration. Chapter 624, Greeting Gift. Hearing the words of the duo, Xing Yuan felt a little lightheaded. The person whom Princess Feiya met was indeed despicable and shameless, so there was nothing to comment about that. However, who in the world did Luo Chichi met for her to admire the other party so much? In fact, this didn't seem like plain admiration but adoration already. Despicable and shameless. "What did he do to make you so angry?" Luo Chichi asked. He's completely shameless." The more Princess Feiya thought about it, the angrier she became. She quickly recounted the entire matter. "He actually made you his maid?" Hearing Princess Feiya's words, Luo Chichi's mouth widened in disbelief. Who was the lady before her? Hongyuan Empire's sixth princess, the dear daughter that the emperor doted a lot on. Even Xing Yuan dared not overstep his boundaries before her, and yet someone actually tried to make her his maid. Wasn't that person a little bit too daring? Even if she became your maid, would you dare command her around? Smiling lightly, Luo Chichi shook her head and said, "Actually, I think that person is rather formidable. To be able to make our obstinate Princess Feiya so angry without you retaliating, he must be a person of great capability." "You." Princess Feiya pouted. "Fine, continue gloating at my plight. Right, what about that person you spoke of?" Today, I went to the apothecary hall." Luo Chichi came out clean with everything that happened today without any reservations. Just by looking at your pill forging, he was able to point out more than 100 flaws. Furthermore, he even instructed you to successfully forge a grade 6 medicine. This. More importantly, he's only in his early 20s. Isn't that way too dashing? Hearing her bosom friend's words, Princess Feiya widened her eyes in shock. Luo Chichi was a famous master apothecary across the entire Master-Teacher Academy. She would get into the top few placings in every tournament conducted by the apothecary school. And yet, such a genius had actually pointed out more than 100 flaws in her pill forging. How formidable must that young man be? Putting aside Luo Chichi, if Princess Feiya could, she would definitely take the other party to be her teacher as well. Indeed. I, Luo Chichi, have never admired anyone ever since I started cultivating. Zhong Larosha is the only exception. Recalling the confident and suave demeanor of that young man, Luo Chichi's lips began creeping up uncontrollably once more. I'm also starting to feel a little bit of admiration for the Zhong Larosha you spoke of. When can you bring me to meet him? I also want to learn pill forging from him as well. Princess Feiya said. Sure. You should also bring me to meet that fellow you spoke of. I'm really interested to see the face of the man who dares have our Princess Feiya serve as his maid. If he proves to be a mere weakling, I'll help you pummel him until he forgets his own name. UN. The duo chuckled intimately. Seeing that the two ladies were chatting happily on and on, Xing Yuan suddenly interjected. Cough cough. Ladies, Crown Prince Yi Qian has prepared a banquet to welcome us, and has invited some of the geniuses from Huanyu Empire over who will become our juniors very soon. Shall we go over to take a look now? Right, there's still the banquet. Only then did Luo Chichi recall the matter. Of course, we should go. However, we'll need to prepare ourselves first. All right. Since you're going, I'll go as well. Seeing that her best friend was going, Princess Faya also nodded in agreement. After chatting with Luo Chichi, the anger from before had mostly dissipated. Hearing that the ladies needed to prepare themselves, Xing Yuan slapped his forehead speechlessly. Without a doubt, the ladies' preparation would surely be lengthy. It would be hard to tell whether they would be able to make it for the banquet in time now. The Crown Prince arrives. While Xing Yuan was staring speechlessly into the sky, Crown Prince Yi Qian arrived at the banquet hall. Your Highness. Hong Shi and the others immediately stood up and clasped their fists. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Yi Qian waved his hands casually as he walked up to the main table. Looking at the young man seated on the table, he greeted with a smile, Senior Wu Zhen. UN. Wu Zhen nodded. Where are Xing Yuan and the others? The other seniors will be here very soon, Yi Qian replied. All right. Wu Zhen noted before turning his gaze back to the wine on the table. Thus, Yi Qian turned around to look at the crowd and said, I believe everyone here should know the purpose why I invited you here. Yes. We understand. Luo Zhao, Chen Yu, and the others nodded. Good. First, allow me to introduce Senior Wu Zhen from Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy to everyone here. He's a grade 2 student, a 5-star low-tier master teacher, Yi Qian introduced. Wu Zhen nodded as a gesture to everyone from his seat. As one of the top geniuses of the Master Teacher Academy, it was normal for him to have such pride. 5-star low-tier? Hearing the other party's introduction, Zhong Xian turned to look at Hong Shi in bewilderment. Shouldn't master teacher rankings be divided into primary, intermediate, advanced, and pinnacle? What does low tier mean? Upon reaching 5-star as a master teacher, progressing through the ranks starts to become extremely difficult. Hong Shi replied telepathically. UN. Zhong Xian nodded. Upon becoming a 5-star master teacher, one could be considered to have taken the first step to the upper society of the continent. However, at this point, not only would it be difficult for one's cultivation to progress by even a small realm, it would also be difficult to raise one's occupation rank as well. As such, in order to better divide the ranks, from 5-star onward, the sub-ranks of a master teacher are divided into low tier, middle tier, and high tier instead. Hong Shi continued, this way, the sub-ranks can be corresponded to the cultivation of a master teacher. At Transcendent Mortal 6 Dan, I'm a 5-star low-tier master teacher. At 7 Dan, I'll become a high tier, and at 8 Dan, pinnacle. But of course, the rise in one's cultivation must be accompanied with an enhancement in one's eye of discernment, or else one wouldn't be qualified for the next tier. Zhong Xian came to a realization. From 3-star master teacher onward, the cultivation of a master teacher in a certain rank could range over 3 different cultivation realms. For example, the minimum requirement to becoming a 4-star master teacher was that one had to possess the cultivation of Transcendent Mortal 2 Dan. However, one would have to reach Transcendent Mortal 5 Dan to become a half 5-star master teacher. In other words, at 2 Dan, 3 Dan, and 4 Dan, one would be considered as a 4-star master teacher. On the other hand, only upon reaching 6 Dan would one be considered a full-fledged 5-star master teacher. But of course, cultivation was only one of the criteria. There were a lot of other requirements in play as well. The grades of Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy are divided based on one's master teacher ranking. 4-star pinnacle and half 5-star master teacher freshmen will be placed in grade 1. If they advance to become a full-fledged 5-star master teacher, they will be promoted to grade 2, and if they become a 5-star middle-tier master teacher, they will become a grade 3 student, so on and so forth. There are a total of 6 grades in Hongyuan Academy. In other words, Even 6-star master teachers could be considered as students. 6-star master teachers are still students. Zhong Xian widened his eyes in shock. As expected of the Master Teacher Academy, it was indeed formidable. He could already foresee the countless number of geniuses that would be in the academy. He wasn't too interested in the academy at the start, but after hearing this introduction, he started to bear some expectations toward it. Given that it was a place where so many master teachers were gathered, perhaps, he might just find a solution to the innate fetal poison there. Even if he failed, studying among so many master teachers should also allow his master teacher rank to soar quickly. At the very least, this was much better than him fumbling along alone. We've long heard of Wu Shi's name. A grade 2 student, you are one of the top geniuses in the academy. It's a privilege for me, Luo Zhao from Qianfeng Empire, to meet you. Hearing the Crown Prince's introduction, Luo Zhao stood up and greeted with a bright smile. As the locals here, surely we can't welcome you empty-handed. A while ago, when I was out training in the western mulberry fields, I happened to find a few mulberry sparrow seeds. Thus, I thought that I should give them to Wu Shi and the other esteemed guests from Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy to express our goodwill. Saying so, Luo Zhao flicked his wrist, and a few crimson lotus seed-like objects slowly flew toward Wu Zhen via his zhenqi. Mulberry sparrow seeds? Is this the legendary medicinal herb that only grows by the nest of the transcendent mortal 8-dan spirit beast heaven sparrow? It's said that this item can revitalize one upon consumption, and it could augment one's soul depth. To give out so many of them at once, what a valuable gift. Incredible, these are truly good stuff. As expected of the pavilion master of the Qianfeng Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, his generosity is indeed exceptional. Seeing the gift that Luo Zhao gave, everyone was awed. Even Hong Shi and Zhong Xian stared at one another with a deep frown on their foreheads. Mulberry sparrow seed was an invaluable treasure. Its worth wasn't beneath that of the great river snake's inner core. It seemed like Luo Zhao had come prepared this time around. That fellow wasn't completely honest. Hong Shi's face darkened as he clenched his fists tightly in rage. Earlier today, when he went to wreak havoc at the other party's place, while the other party did tell him whom the 4 guests were, they didn't reveal any other details. Thus, he thought that they really didn't know anything. Who could have known that? They would have actually prepared presents beforehand. Lag a step behind, and one will lag every step behind. It was already too late for them to find a gift anymore. Mulberry sparrow seeds? These are indeed valuable. I'll accept it in the stead of the 6th princess and the others then. Being offered such a valuable gift, Wu Zhen's eyes lit up. He walked forward and took the seeds. His eyes lit in satisfaction. These mulberry sparrow seeds were extremely rare, and it was troublesome to procure them even in the wealthier Hongyuan Empire. Since Luo Shi has prepared gifts, how could our Zhuyu Empire possibly come empty-handed? Here is the Moonstar body that I spent 10 days in Moundless River to find. I hope that Wu Shi can accept this. With a flick of Chen Yu's fingers, 4 pearl-like objects carrying a warm glow flew toward Wu Zhen. Moonstar body? The Moonstar tree only gathers sufficient essence of the stars and moon to produce one of these seeds once a millennium. The energy it harnessed is comparable to the inner core of a transcendent mortal 7-dan pinnacle spirit beast. If one were to hold in while cultivating constantly, it could allow one to feel the stars, thus expanding the horizons one's mind. The value of this object can be said to be equivalent to the mulberry sparrow seed. What do you mean by equivalent? I'd say that it exceeds it. Seems like Chen Shi came prepared. Given how they gave out so many valuable gifts, what about Hong Shi? Seeing how even Chen Shi had offered such a valuable gift, Luo Xian and Bai Jiankai stared at one another with a deep frown. It seemed like the previous provocation was nothing more than an appetizer. This was the main course. Given that the other party had taken out such valuable gifts, what should Hong Shi do? Just as the duo was in the midst of worrying, the swollen-faced Feng Yu also took out a treasure, the value of which wasn't beneath that of the previous 2 gifts. Hong Shi, this is our first meeting with Wu Shi. We have all shown a token of our appreciation. Where is yours? Luo Zhao turned to Hong Shi and smiled. Voila! Everyone's gaze immediately fell on Hong Shi. Chapter 625, Zhongshen's indignation. Hong She's face darkened. He didn't expect that the other party would be so vicious, intentionally bringing out all their treasures first before cornering him. The other three had taken out gifts of extremely high quality, yet he hadn't prepared anything at all. He couldn't take out anything even if he wanted to. While not giving a gift might not have a decisive impact on the slot allocation, granted that everyone had given a gift and he didn't, this might incur Wu Shi's displeasure and thus the Crown Prince's in turn. Besides, the other party was already clearly mocking him. He couldn't possibly just sit still and allow the other party to ridicule him, right? What's wrong? It can't be that you didn't prepare anything at all. Are you serious? I told you this afternoon that Wu Shi and the others would be attending the banquet, and I thought the reason why you arrived late was so you could prepare something. Was I mistaken? You knew that we're meeting esteemed guests and yet you came empty-handed. Where are your manners? Luo Zhao, Chen Yu, and Feng Yu gloated upon seeing Hong She's face slowly darkening. They had indeed told Hong She about the 4 esteemed guests, but of course, they left out the part regarding the gifts. As expected, upon hearing the words of the trio, Crown Prince Yi Qian frowned in displeasure. While he didn't think too much of the gifts, he did feel that it was improper for Hongfeng Empire to come empty-handed when the others had brought such valuable gifts. I've just arrived today, so the item is still. Feeling the gazes on him growing more and more intense, and the questioning tone becoming sharper and sharper, Hong She's face flushed, stifled. He was just about to say that the gift wasn't ready yet when a nonchalant voice sounded beside him. Of course, our Hongfeng Empire has prepared our own gift as well. Hearing those words, Hong She panicked and hurriedly turned to look at the origin of the voice. It came from the young man sitting beside him, Zhongshen. Zhongshe, I didn't prepare anything at all. Hong She's face immediately twitched, and he hurriedly sent a telepathic message to stop Zhongshen. It was one thing to be mocked for not having prepared anything, but to claim that they had prepared something and yet be unable to produce it, that would only be even more embarrassing. One must know that the gifts of the previous 3 had already set the stage. If they were to take out something that paled in value right now, they would still only be embarrassing themselves. Oh, since you've prepared something, why don't you take it out so that we can take a look? Hearing the one with the lowest cultivation interjecting in their conversation, Luo Zhao harumphed coldly. Take it out. Zhongshen shook his head. I'm afraid that it'll be a little difficult now. Hearing that Hongfeng Empire couldn't take out their gift at the moment, Luo Zhao sneered coldly. Difficult? What do you mean by that? Are you trying to make a fool of His Highness and Wu Shi? Hong She's body also swayed weakly, and he suddenly felt his head spinning. To claim that they had prepared a gift and yet be unable to take it out. Big brother, how do you intend to wrap this up? If they were really unable to produce anything at this point, not only would Wu Shi be offended, the Crown Prince would surely be displeased with them as well. With this, even a fool could tell how the slots for the cleansing lake would be distributed later on. The Crown Prince and Wu Shi glanced at one another with a deep frown etched on their foreheads. Just the fact that a fellow in his early 20s could get into the top 3 placing had already left them slightly bewildered. Yet, at this very moment, the very same fellow claimed that they had something prepared but couldn't take it out at the moment. This had left them dumbfounded. They had no idea what the other party was up to. The same went for by Jiang Hai and Luo Xian as well. They had been with Hong Shi the entire afternoon, and they knew better than anyone whether there was a gift prepared or not. If they couldn't take anything out at this moment, wouldn't that put them in a difficult position? I'm just a humble 4-star master teacher from Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Even if someone were to inflate my guts, I would dare not to make a fool of your highness and Wu Shi. Ignoring the puzzled gazes from the crowd, Zhongshen chuckled lightly and turned to Luo Zhao. Luo Shi, you've already taken a good look at the gift which Hong Shi prepared with great difficulty. Isn't it about time for you to return it? Stunned, Luo Zhao's complexion immediately darkened. What did you say? What do you mean by taken a good look? When did I take Hong Shi's gift? I knew that you wouldn't admit to it. Sighing deeply, Zhongshen shook his head. He stood up and clasped his fist toward the Crown Prince and Wu Shi. I hope that your highness and Wu Shi can redress Hong Shi's grievance. Redress Hong She's grievance. As long as you can prove your case, we'll be more than willing to bring justice to Hong She. Instead of the crown prince, Wu She was the one who chuckled and replied to Zhong Xian's words. You have my deepest gratitude. Nodding his head, Zhong Xian turned his attention back to Luo Zhao once more. Since Wu She has already agreed to redress our grievance. Luo Shi, do you dare to match statements with me? Match statements? Why would I dare not to? Seeing how confident the young man before him was, Luo Zhao was stupefied. While he was acquainted with Hong She, the both of them governed different territories and rarely came into contact. So, how could he have taken the other party's item? Yet, this fellow confidently ran up to the crown prince and Wu Shi for them to judge this case. What was he up to? Honestly speaking, even Hong She himself was feeling a little frenzied at the moment. When did Luo Zhao take my stuff? Why am I not aware of it? Good. Lifting his gaze, Zhong Xian smiled. May I confirm if Hong She went over to your living quarters to look for you earlier today? That's right. Luo Zhao nodded. Hong She had walked into his living quarters openly, so it wouldn't be too hard to check on this matter. He wouldn't be able to hide it even if he wanted to. Besides, the other party had only come to look for him. This couldn't serve as any conclusive evidence that he had taken the other party's gift. Did you challenge Hong She to a master-teacher confrontation? Just as Luo Zhao was perplexed as to where this was going, the other party's voice sounded once more. That's right. After a moment of hesitation, Luo Zhao nodded. After seeing Hong She pummeling Feng She, he felt angry and indignant for Feng She, so he challenged Hong She to a master-teacher confrontation. Given that a master-teacher confrontation required one to activate their emblem through their blood and send a request to the headquarters beforehand, it wouldn't be too difficult to look into the matter. Thus, there was no need to hide it. It's good that you've admitted to it. I don't have to elaborate any further then. Nodding his head, Zhong Xian turned to the crown prince and Wu Zhan, and clasped his fist. Luo Shi has already admitted to the matter, so I believe I need not continue on. What are you talking about? You'd better clarify things right now. Luo Zhao clutched his hair in frenzy. What the heck is this fellow up to? Halfway through the questioning, he simply stops and says that I've already admitted to the crime, so he needs not speak any further. What in the world have I admitted to? Hong She was even more lost. Zhong She's jump in logic was simply too big that even he couldn't comprehend what was going on. I think it'll be best that you clarify your word. Yi Qian and Wu Zhan glanced at one another and coughed. All right. Since I've been asked to clarify my words, I hope that I won't be punished on the accounts of from insubordination for speaking up against a higher rank master teacher. At this point, Zhong Xian's eyes suddenly brimmed with indignation and wrath, as though he had suffered an indescribable grievance. Actually, Hong She told me not to speak of it, but I simply can't watch quietly as he is getting wronged. Ah! Hong She widened his eyes in shock. I told you not to speak of it. Speak of what? Hong She is a kind and honest person who is weak with words. For the sake of Huanyu Empire's reputation, he intended to keep the matter a secret. However, as his junior, I can't watch quietly as he gets wronged like this. Zhong Xian continued. Hearing those words, Wu Zhan's face twitched. Kind and honest, I can't really say anything about that, but weak with words. You are clearly lying through your teeth. It's not like I didn't see how Luo Zhao and the others nearly fainted from anger just now. On the other hand, Luo Zhao was trembling in fury. The more he listened the young man's words, the more furious he became. Eventually, his rage hit the point of eruption. Stop pulling out all of this nonsense and get straight to the point. Fine, if you say so. As if mustering his determination and courage, Zhong Xian gritted his teeth in indignation and said, earlier this afternoon, Hong She went over to discuss some things with the other 3 pavilion masters. However, not only did the 3 of them collaborate with one another to beat Hong She up, they even stole the gift he prepared beforehand. The heck? What did you say? We beat Hong She up. Luo Zhao staggered and nearly spewed blood. Beat your head. Hong She rejected my master-teacher confrontation, remember? Besides, when did we collaborate to beat him up? Not to mention, steal his gift. Steal your head. Even if you want to lie, at least choose something more believable than this. 3 master teachers beating up another in the courtyard. Do you think that we are some kind of ruffians? Not giving Luo Zhao a chance to explain himself, Zhongxian pushed on. Since you won't admit to it, let me ask you. Earlier this afternoon, not only did you challenge Hongshe to a master-teacher confrontation, Fengshe also did the same as well, am I right? This. Luo Zhao was taken aback. The both of them did fight one another in a master-teacher confrontation, but Fengshe did fight one another in a master-teacher confrontation, but it was a one-sided pummeling from Hongshe's side, alright? But what? Just the fact that the battle happened proves everything, Zhongxian uttered furiously. Hongshe and Fengshe are both 5-star low-tier master teachers, transcendent mortal 6-dan primary stage cultivators. I believe no one here has any qualms in agreeing that they're equally matched, right? The crowd nodded. As fellow master teachers of the same cultivation realm, there was indeed not much of a disparity in their fighting prowess. Given that they are of equal cultivation and had undergone a master-teacher confrontation, and looking at how badly Fengshe was beaten up, how well do you think Hongshe would fare? Zhongxian questioned on. The Crown Prince and Wu Zhen suddenly froze. Luoshe, let me ask you again. After Hongshe and Fengshe fought with one another, did you immediately apply for a master-teacher confrontation? And did Hongshe say that he had suffered grievous wounds, and he won't be capable of fighting for the next 10 years or words similar to that? Zhongxian pressured on. He did say such words, but Luo Zhao froze once more. He tried to explain himself, but he found himself interrupted by the young man once again. How gravely injured must a 5-star master teacher, a transcendent mortal 6-dan cultivator, be to be unable to fight with anyone for the next 10 years? The more Zhongxian spoke, the more agitated he became. But even so, Luoshe still insisted on challenging Hongshe to a master-teacher confrontation. How could Hongshe possibly be a match for him under such a state? Naturally, the gift that he prepared in his storage ring ended up being taken away as well. At this point, Zhongxian looked so angry that if he were to continue speaking, indignant tears might just start flowing from his eyes. Screw you. When did I beat him up and take his gift? You better stop lying. Luo Zhao's body swayed weakly, and he nearly burst into tears. It was obvious that Hongshe was the one who went over to beat Fengshe up. How did it suddenly turn into Fengshe and Hongshe being equally injured in a duel, and I became a despicable person who struck in his time of weakness? Not to mention, I even took his stuff on top of that. Is your mouth capable of uttering even the slightest truth? To be lying blatantly like that, are you certain you are a master teacher? Where's your pride? Ah. Chapter 626. Luo Zhao on the verge of insanity. Chen Yu and Feng Yu's lips were also twitching uncontrollably. Only the 4 of them were present and knew what had happened. Even before the duel between Fengshe and Hongshe, Fengshe was already incapacitated to the point that he was on the verge of death. How could he possibly be capable of fighting? How in the world did it turn into a match between equals? As for Luoshe beating Hongshe up, after Hongshe said that he was grievously injured, Luoshe didn't make a move at all. On the other hand, seeing how indignant Zhongxian was as he depicted the situation back then, he suddenly fell into a daze. Was I really beaten up by Luoshe? Could I have suffered a concussion and forgotten about it? Stop spouting nonsense. The rest of us can testify that was not what happened then. Fengshe was already injured then. Unable to hold himself back any longer, Chen Yu intervened. As though knowing that the other party would retaliate through such words, Zhongxian flung his sleeves and refuted. Fengshe was already injured then? Since you claim that to be the case, I would like to ask about how Fengshe was injured. Who was the one who beat him up? After all, it's a major affair for a 5-star master teacher to be so severely injured. Surely there must be a report on the matter. This. Cold sweat began dripping down Chen Yu's head. Perhaps I might have remembered wrongly. Fengshe's action in stopping Hongshe's passageway was contrary to the master-teacher moral code in the first place, not to mention, he failed shamefully and crashed to the ground, nearly dying in the process. No matter what, this matter mustn't be made known. Otherwise, Fengshe would be a goner. But if they didn't reveal this matter, what else could they say? After all, earlier this morning, when they met with the Crown Prince, Fengshe was still perfectly fine. Yet, a few hours later, he was turned into a mummy. There was no other explanation they could offer that would be more logical than Zhong Xian's. Are you trying to back on your words now that you can't find any other excuse? Zhong Xian ranted furiously, as though he would only be content if he burned the surroundings down. Nevertheless, Wu Shi can testify that the three of you banded together to work against Hongshe. As such, surely it won't be too shocking for you to be speaking up for your ally now? This really brings the authenticity of your words into question. This. Chen Yu's cheeks trembled in anger. Even though Wu Shi was drinking then, there was no doubt that he had seen how the three of them banded against Hongshe earlier. It was too late for them to refute it now. Since that's the case, I'll have to ask Fengshe and Chen Shi to remain silent on this matter. Zhong Xian waved his hands. Furious, Chen Yu was just about to speak up to refute Zhong Xian's words when the Crown Prince suddenly interjected. Enough, the two of you should back down for now. Allow this young man to finish his piece first. Even from the gift presentation just a moment ago, the trio was clearly working together to corner Hongshe. A person of the Crown Prince's caliber couldn't possibly have neglected this. Since it was established that the three of them were working together, their words had lost credibility. Thank you, Your Highness. Zhong Xian nodded. Hongshe arrived in the banquet hall slightly later because he was in the midst of recuperating from his injuries from the previous fight. Yet, the other three pavilion masters ganged up against him and accused him for a breach of etiquette. Wu Shi can testify to my word. He isn't lying. Wu Shi nodded. Wu Shi, I thank you for speaking up for us. After which, Zhong Xian turned his gaze back to the Crown Prince and clasped his fist. After beating Hongshe up and stealing his gift, they intentionally caused a scene here so as to make Hongfeng Empire lose their slots. Now that the facts are in place, I ask of Your Highness to bring justice to the matter. The Crown Prince looked at Zhong Xian and said, Your argument is rational, and I am more than willing to redress your grievances. However, I'll need to verify the matter first. For this, I would like to confirm what kind of gift you have brought. As the Crown Prince of an empire and a half five-star master teacher, he was no fool. While there was no logical flaw in the argument of the young man before him, and Luo Zhao had admitted to many of the affairs personally, he still found it hard to believe that 3 5-star master teachers would actually resort to stealing the gift of a peer of theirs. Indeed. You said that I took Hong Qian's gift, but what exactly did I take? If you can't say it, that would be equivalent to falsely accusing a higher-ranked master teacher. If proven guilty, you would be stripped of your master teacher license or even sentenced to death. Hearing those words, Luo Zhao's eyes immediately lit up. As the saying goes, catch an adultery in a pear, catch a thief by his loot. Since you claimed that I took Hongshe's item, why don't you tell me what I took? Once your words are proven false, let's see how you'll deal with that. Just the sentence of a 4-star master teacher slandering a 5-star master teacher is sufficient to seal your doom. I've seen plenty of shameless people before, but I've never seen one as shameless as you. It's one thing for you to not admit to taking the item of another, but to spout such righteous words on top of that. Since that's the case, I'll make sure you concede willingly. Harumphing coldly, Zhong Xian turned to Hongshe and said, Hongshe, I'll have to trouble you on this matter. Trouble me? Hongshe suddenly jolted upon hearing Zhong Xian calling him. Zhongshe, feel free to speak. At this moment, he was completely awed by the fellow before him. The mouth of this fellow could probably turn even a corpse into a living being into a deity. They came late due to waiting for this fellow, but through the other party's words, it somehow turned into him recuperating from his injuries. The fellow even managed to incorporate it into the nonsense he rambled earlier on. What was even more amazing was that he even managed to form a complete story without the slightest disharmony. Even he, the person in question, couldn't help but admit that there were no flaws to the story. To be able to craft such a thorough story, could this fellow have already thought so far when he advised him on the matter regarding how he should deal with Luo Shi and the others? If that was really the case, then the other party would be an extremely fearsome figure. What you have to do is simple, you just have to. This time, Zhongxian was speaking to Hongsha telepathically. You want me to? Hearing the other party's words, Hongsha widened his eyes in shock. Yuan, go on. Whether we'll be able to tear off their masks or not will depend on Hongsha. Zhongxian clenched his fists tightly. Go. Go your head. Recalling the words the other party sent to him telepathically, Hongsha's body staggered, and he nearly burst into tears. Are you sure you aren't trying to have me killed instead? Seeing the dilemma on the other party's face, Zhongxian consoled him. Don't worry. Try recalling the duel between Ruohuan Gongzi and Qin Lei, and you'll understand what I'm up to. Ruohuan Gongzi and Qin Lei? Hongsha suddenly froze. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Ruohuan Gongzi to advance to the top 8. Given that his opponent was Qin Lei, even Hongsha thought that he had no chance at victory. Yet, after Ruohuan Gongzi threw a bowl of meat soup on Qin Lei, he suddenly made a complete turnaround. He couldn't help but be mystified whenever he recalled the matter. But from the looks of it, there was no doubt that this fellow was involved in it. But nevertheless, what he was going to do now was indeed similar to what Ruohuan Gongzi did back then. All right. Knowing that this was for their group, after a moment of hesitation, Hongsha gritted his teeth, stood up, and started walking over to Luosha. What are you up to now? Luo Zhao was perplexed. Instead of revealing what he took from Hongsha, why was he sending Hongsha up to him instead? There is something I need to trouble Luosha on, so I seek for your cooperation. Hongsha clasped his fist earnestly and replied. On the other hand, Zhongxian lifted up a wine glass and sipped on it nonchalantly, paying no heed to the happenings around him. Cooperate? Why should I cooperate with you? Luo Zhao gritted his teeth. You accused me of doing something I haven't done, and now you want me to cooperate with you? Why should I? Should I just allow you to hurl more mud at me? If you don't cooperate, it can only mean that you have a guilty conscience. Rest assured, if you're truly innocent, we can't possibly frame you for something you haven't done, Hongsha replied. Hearing the other party's words, Luosha knew that he would only look even more doubtful if he refused to cooperate. Thus, gritting his teeth, he conceded. Fine, I'll cooperate then. What do you want me to do? You want me to cooperate? Fine. Let's see what you can do then. In any case, as long as you can't reveal what item I've taken from you, you're doomed. My victory is already assured. Stand up and place your hands behind your back, Hongsha said. Humph. Even though Luo Zhao was on the verge of exploding with anger, he still stood up and placed his hands behind his back. Right, this is the correct position. Maintain it and don't move. Hongsha adjusted the other party's position for a little bit before walking up to the other party's face. Then, he suddenly raised his palm and slapped the other party. Pa. A crisp sound echoed loudly in across the banquet hall. What? The crown prince was stunned. Wuxia was stupefied. Everyone was dumbfounded. This is the cooperation you spoke of? Maintaining his position just so you can slap his face? Screw you. Hong Qian, I'll kill you. Luo Zhao was stunned momentarily before immense rage gushed through his entire body. This slap had left him lightheaded and knocked out 3 of his teeth. He would really be a pushover if he didn't retaliate now. I was thinking why you wanted me to stand in position, but in the end, it turned out that it was just so that you could better slap me. Hong Qian, Luo Zhao, swear that I'll kill you. Luo Zhao was completely clouded with rage. Ignoring the crown prince and Wu Shi, he immediately raised his palm and struck it down toward Hong Qian. Hula! Furious wind gushed into the surroundings, and the sheer force of the palm distorted even space itself. As a transcendent mortal 6-dan master teacher, his eye of discernment and fighting prowess had already reached an astounding level. If he were to move with his full might, even a mountain could be crushed to smithereens easily, needless to say, a man. Who? However, his attack landed on thin air. Looking around, he realized that unknowingly, Hong Shi, who had just slapped him, had already returned to his seat and was currently holding onto a glass of wine with a leisurely expression, as if nothing had happened at all. You're dead. Luo Zhao bellowed with crimson eyes. When had he suffered such immense humiliation ever since he became a master teacher? To actually be positioned well before being slapped. Could there be anything more darned than this? He was about to charge forward to destroy the man who had just insulted him when the young man from before suddenly roared righteously. Enough, Luosha. This is the palace of the Crown Prince, not your own home. What do you mean by displaying your aggression here? Luo Zhao nearly burst into tears. You are only recalling that this is the Crown Prince's palace now? And yet you still allowed Hong Qian, that rascal, to knock out my teeth. The one who had suffered injustice was me. What rights do you have to be uttering such self-righteous words? You aren't the one who got hit. In the midst of exploding with anger, Luo Zhao turned to Wu Shi and the Crown Prince and bowed. I cannot tolerate the insult from Hong Qian any longer. I beseech you to allow me to challenge him to a life-and-death duel. But once again, before he could finish his words, he was interrupted. Your Highness and Wu Shi, didn't you ask me what item he had stolen from Hong Shi? I'll write it down now so that no one can accuse me of lying. Following which, Zhongxian immediately took out a brush, ink slab, and paper, and began writing on it. Chapter 627. What else do you have to say? Write it down now. The Crown Prince nodded. It was indeed best for it to be written on paper. This way, there would be concrete evidence regardless of the outcome. Through this, he would be able to confirm whether the 3 5-star master teachers really did steal Hong Shi's item or not. Alright, I'd like to see what you'll write. Once it's proven that you're nothing more than a liar, not only will I have a life-and-death duel with Hong Qian, I'll also kill you afterward. Luo Zhao bellowed furiously. At this point, there was no longer any aspect of him that resembled a master teacher. Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai glanced at one another with twitching lips. Honestly speaking, if they were in Luo Zhao's shoes, their string of rationality would have long snapped. To be toyed by another like this, they would already be impressed with themselves if they could curb their urge to murder the other party. Kill me. Ignoring the other party's bellows, Zhongxian continued writing on the paper. A moment later, he kept his writing tools and passed the paper over to the Crown Prince and Wu Shi. The duo took a look at it and froze for a moment. After which, the Crown Prince put away the paper before turning to Luo Zhao. Luo Shi, can we take a look at your storage ring? Of course, I've nothing to hide. Luo Zhao had no idea what was written on the paper, but since he didn't take anything, he had absolute confidence in this matter. Thus, he didn't fear others checking his storage ring. He took off his storage ring, dispelled the ownership status on the ring, and passed it over. Grabbing the ring, the Crown Prince scanned the contents, and not too long later, he flicked his wrist and took out a gourd. Luo Shi, what is this? Looking at the item the other party took out, Luo Zhao clasped his fist and said, Your Highness, I'm very fond of wine, and this is a bottle of top-notch wine that I've collected. Wine? The Crown Prince looked at him questioningly. Are you certain? Reporting to Your Highness, it's indeed wine, I'm certain. Luo Zhao nodded. All right. The Crown Prince pried open the lid, and a dense aroma of wine immediately wafted in the room. What a strong wine aroma. It's indeed wine. Could it be that Luo Shi took a bottle of wine? But is there any point to it? Even if the wine possesses exceptional taste, it's still just a mere beverage. How much could it possibly cost? You're right. Let's just watch on for now. Smelling the deep wine aroma in the air, everyone was perplexed. It couldn't be that they had gone through so much trouble tonight just because Luo Shi took a bottle of wine from Hong Shi. What a cultivator valued primarily were naturally their cultivation, and to that end, pills, mystical artifacts, spirit stones, and the sort. On the contrary, their appetite for fine food gradually dampened over time. A refined wine it may be, but it wouldn't be worthy of a 5-star master teacher going so far for it. Is this it? The Crown Prince turned to the young man standing not too far away. Yes. Zhongxian nodded. Hearing the latter confirm the matter, both the Crown Prince and Wu Shi glanced at one another in confusion. But this is merely wine, right? When they opened the bottle, they took a look and confirmed that it was wine. This was something very much different from what the young man wrote. There's no need to panic. It'll be easy to confirm whether it's what I've written or not. Standing up, Zhongxian scanned the surroundings and eventually, His gaze fell on Feng Yu. Feng Shi, may I trouble you for something? No. Alarmed, Feng Yu quickly shook his head and cowered backward. Trouble me? You must be kidding. You still aren't content with causing me such grievous injury? The first time I met you, I fell from the skies. Afterward, I was beaten up by Hongshe. Even if I were to put all that aside, just a moment ago Hongshe approached Luoshe for help and slapped him. If I were to fall for your ploy after all of these, I must really be dumb. Don't worry, this will be something beneficial to you. Seeing how Feng Shi was on the verge of fainting after hearing that he needed his help, Zhongxian was speechless. I am really doing this out of goodwill. Is there a need for you to be so scared? I'm a master teacher, not a demon. Why do you make my request seem as though making a contract with the devil? It matters not whether it is beneficial or not. Feng Shi shook his head profusely. All right, fine then. Seeing how the other party refused to accept his goodwill out of suspicion, Zhongxian scanned the surroundings once more and eventually, his gaze fell on Bai Jianghai. Bai Shi, come over. I. Bai Jianghai's mouth twitched, and he nearly burst into tears. How in the world have I offended you? All I did was boast a little before you during the finals, right? Surely you need not hold a grudge for so long. Seeing the other party's expression, Zhongxian shook his head and sighed. Don't worry, I just want you to prove that this isn't just wine. Fine. Clenching his jaws, Bai Jianghai stepped forward. Seeing that the other party was in position, Zhongxian nodded in satisfaction. Following which, he flicked his wrist and whipped out a dagger. Come, stretch out your arm. Bai Jianghai swallowed a mouthful of saliva before slowly raising his arm up. Good. With a slight smile, Zhongxian flicked his wrist, and the dagger stabbed right into Bai Jianghai's arm. A scream of agony echoed through the hall, and Bai Jianghai's body began to tremble. He nearly went insane on the spot. He knew that it couldn't be anything good, but he never expected to have a dagger stabbed into him. Watching as crimson blood flowed freely out of his arm, tears streamed down his face. He was already regretting dearly for listening to the words of the god of destruction. If he had known earlier, he would have surely played dead. I knew that it would be something bad. Seeing this sight, Feng Yu heaved a sigh of relief. His history with this young man had deeply ingrained in him the idea that nothing good would come out from the association with the latter. Watching as blood flowed profusely out of the stabbed arm, he suddenly felt this was the wisest decision he had made in his life. Don't panic. Seeing Bai Jianghai twitching uncontrollably due to anxiety, Zhongxian quickly calmed him down before turning to the crown prince. I'll be troubling your highness and Wu Shi. UN. The crown prince nodded his head and passed the wine gourd over. Grabbing the gourd, Zhongxian swirled it slightly as he turned to Luo Zhao and asked, Luoshe, I'll ask you one last time. Are you certain that what is inside here is wine? Yes, it's definitely wine. Luo Zhao nodded confidently. All right then. Not bothering to explain, with his left hand holding the wine gourd and right hand on the dagger stabbed into Bai Jianghai's arm, Zhongxian slowly pulled the dagger out. Tzzzzzzzz. As the dagger was drawn out, blood immediately spurted wildly from the wound, reminiscent of a fountain. Bai Jianghai's face immediately paled, and he could feel the sight before him blurring. Even though he was only stabbed in the arm, the intense pain was still difficult for him to bear. Hold on. Seeing the other party's pained expression, Zhongxian quickly poured the content of the gourd onto the wound. Tzzzzzzzz. As soon as the wine came into contact with the wound, an intense reaction immediately occurred. The muscle that was torn by the dagger healed at a pace visible to the eye, and in just a short moment, the wound had disappeared altogether, as though the injury had never happened. Could this not be wine but a saint recovery medicine? Indeed. Only a saint medicine could possibly heal a wound so quickly. Everyone widened their eyes in astonishment, but soon, it was replaced with envy. There was no cultivator who would never be injured, and thus, recovery medicine was an essential that everyone had to carry along with them. However, despite how expensive the typical recovery medicine was, it would still require days for a wound to heal back to its original condition. Otherwise, Feng Shi wouldn't have come to the banquet with a swollen face. On the other hand, This recovery medicine actually immediately healed such a glaring wound upon contact. Furthermore, not even the slightest scar was left behind. This was way too fearsome. Probably only the legendary saint medicine could harness such effectiveness. My wound. Bai Jianghai thought that the gaping injury would take at least half a month of recuperation to recover from. He had never thought that just a few drops of the wine would bring his arm back to its original condition. Thus, the scene before him had left his eyes widened in disbelief. Wasn't this a little bit too formidable? While Bai Jianghai was stunned in shock, the previously gleeful Feng Shui clutched his chest as he found himself unable to catch his breath. He felt so regretful that even his intestines were turning green. It turned out that the fellow was inviting him up to test this saint medicine. If only he had known, he would have surely rushed up in an instant, and the injuries he had sustained would have disappeared in an instant. All right, I'm done proving my point. I'll leave it to your highness and Wu Shi to judge the matter. Ignoring everyone's shock, Zhongxian placed the gourd back on the table and clasped his fists toward the crown prince and Wu Shi before walking back to the Hongfeng Empire party. Luo Shi, the wine that you spoke of turned out to be a saint recovery medicine instead. Why don't you explain yourself? The crown prince turned to look at Luo Zhao impassively. Luo Zhao staggered, and his mouth twitched uncontrollably. If I say that gourd is really filled with wine, will you believe me? He was really on the verge of going insane already. He loved wine nearly as much as his own life. Many people knew of this. As such, he filled this wine gourd with the wine he loved the most and carried it around with him. When in the world did it become a saint recovery medicine? You still want to deny it at this point. The crown prince smacked the table in rage. Everyone had seen the effects of the wine for themselves, and you still wish to deny the matter. Do you take me for a fool? Chen Shi, I'll trouble you to read what is on this paper. Turning his gaze away from Luo Shi, he threw the paper that Zhongxian had just written on to Chen Yu. Yes. Taking the paper, Chen Yu unfolded it and began reading aloud. Luo Shi took the recovery medicinal wine that Hong Shi went to great lengths to obtain. This medicinal wine is particularly effective on physical wounds. With just a few drops, ordinary wounds are healed instantly. The further Chen Yu read, the paler his face became. The crown prince turned his gaze back to Luo Zhao and questioned, "What words do you have to say?" Luo Zhao vision turned dark. It was already a checkmate. What else could he say? If you didn't steal it, how could Zhongxi know that it's a medicinal wine and even know of its properties? The crown prince pushed on. Luo Zhao felt frenzied. He had no idea what was going on anymore. A thought suddenly flashed across Luo Zhao's mind, and he glared at Zhongxian in savagery. It's all your doing. It must be this fellow's doing that his wine turned into a saint recovery medicine. There was no one else but him. Toward the other party's furious howl, Zhongxian replied with composure, "This gourd of medicinal wine is the gift that Hong Shi prepared for Wu Shi and the others, but you ended up stealing it instead. It's fortunate that Hong Shi left a portion of it with me in case of emergency. That was why he was able to recover so quickly and arrive at the banquet hall unscathed." I see. Only then did everyone come to a realization. They had been wondering how Hong Shi could be completely fine after the master-teacher confrontation when Feng Shui was so heavily injured. It turned out that the other party had prepared a spare portion in case of emergency. With this, all of the puzzle's pieces fitted snugly together. Luo Zhao, what else do you have to say? The crown prince looked at Luo Zhao with deep disappointment reflected in his eyes. Chapter 628, Rules for the Distribution of Slots. I have nothing to say about this matter. After a long moment of thought, all of Luo Zhao's words were eventually reduced to a long sigh. He really couldn't make sense of what had happened. Stored within the gourd was the 1,000 cups drunk he had his apprentice buy from the fragrant Sedge Brewery. Who could have known that it would suddenly turn into a saint recovery medicine? There was nothing he could say that could salvage the situation anymore. If he were to claim that he didn't take the other party's item, he couldn't explain how the other party's medicinal wine was in his storage ring. But if he were to admit to it, the deep indignation he felt simply wouldn't allow it. One must know that master teachers do care about their reputation. While he did attempt to corner Hongsha verbally, he had never gotten physical with the latter, so how could he have ever taken the latter's item? Not to mention, such a valuable medicinal wine. Knowing what the other party was thinking about, Zhongxian spoke casually. You need not feel wronged. If you think that we're framing you, we still have a spare cup of medicinal wine left after treating Hongsha's wounds. I can show it to you once more. With a flick of his wrist, he took out a wine cup. The deep aroma of the wine cup gradually wafted across the banquet hall. Is there anyone who is willing to try the effects of this cup of wine? Zhongxian scanned the surroundings. Allow me. Feng Yu stood up excitedly. Zhongxian turned to the young man beside him and said, Bai Shi, I think it'll be best for you to go again. Feng Yu. Cough cough. Bai Jianghai, who was in the midst of drinking his wine, nearly choked to death. With a helpless expression, he stood up and said, I'll do it myself. After which, using his finger as a sword, he hurled a surge of zhenqi at his arm, producing a deep cut. Blood immediately started flowing down the wound. With a slight smile, Zhongxian poured the wine in the cup onto the wound. Tzzzzzz. A few breaths later, the wound healed, leaving no scars behind. The effects were exactly the same as before. Your Highness and Wu Shi, this can prove our case, right? After all was done, Zhongxian turned to the duo and clasped his fist. Of course. Yi Qian nodded. Considering how the young man was able to identify the item within the other party's storage ring and take out another with the exact same effects, the evidence was conclusive. Despite being a 5-star master teacher, you actually snatched the possession of another. This is unpardonable. Yi Qian flung his sleeves and stared at Luo Zhao in anger and disgust. He had always felt deep respect for the pavilion masters from the vassal states, but who could have known that they would actually do this kind of underhanded stuff? He felt repulsed. Hongsha and Zhongsha, I apologize for the behavior of a master teacher under us. May I know, how do you intend to deal with this? He had heard Hongsha addressing the young man earlier as Zhongsha. Hongsha clasped his fist and said, Today is a joyous occasion, and I don't wish to cause any trouble or disharmony. As long as he hands over the gourd of medicinal wine, I hope to let the matter rest just like that. I share the same thoughts as Hongsha. Zhongxian nodded in agreement. Let the matter rest. Everyone was stunned. Given how Luo Zhao tried to corner them verbally earlier, they thought that the Hongfeng party would surely make things difficult for him through the hands of the Crown Prince. If this case were to be reported to the Master Teacher Pavilion, there was a good chance that Luo Zhao could even lose his Master Teacher license. Who knew that they would actually be willing to let the matter rest with just Luo Zhao handing over the medicinal wine? What kind of magnanimity was this? You're both 5-star master teachers, and yet you keep trying to put down the other party at every opportunity. On the other hand, the other party is on the moral high ground and yet he remains humble and magnanimous. Even the Crown Prince and Wu Shi couldn't help but be impressed by Hong Shi and Zhongxian's attitude. Luo Shi, did you hear that? Are you going to return the medicinal wine, or are you going to continue keeping it for yourself? The Crown Prince glanced at Luo Zhao. I'll return it. Luo Zhao was slightly stunned. He thought that given how the other party successfully framed him, they would make use of this opportunity to corner him and have him fall from grace. Who could have known that he would suddenly be let off the hook? All right. Wu Shi, this will be Hongfeng Empire's gift to you. Hong Shi clasped his fist and presented the medicinal wine to Wu Zhen. This. Agitation rippled within Wu Zhen's eyes as he nodded his head. I'll thank Hong Shi in 6th Princess's stead. This was a saint recovery medicine. Regardless of the size of the wound, with just a few drops, one would be as good as new. This could potentially save their lives one day. It's just a humble gesture on our part. Hong Qian clasped his fist and returned to his seat. He turned his gaze to the young man beside him, and the intrigue in his eyes deepened. Under Luo Zhao, Chen Yu, and Feng Yu's cornering, he was already prepared to make a fool out of himself. Who could have known that Zhong Shi would suddenly appear and turn the tables around? Not only so, Luo Zhao even nearly broke down in the process. He knew better than anyone whether Luo Zhao had taken his item or not, but somehow, everything just somehow fell into place, and Luo Zhao ended up being deemed guilty. Zhongshe, the matter just now. Unable to hold back his curiosity any longer, he sent a telepathic message to the latter. Oh, it's just a little trick. Teacher taught me, it's nothing much. Zhongxian nodded. The previous matter was clearly a ploy that Luo Zhao, Chen Yu, and Feng Yu prepared to trap and embarrass Hongshe. If they were to succeed, the chances were that they would have lost the slots for the cleansing lake. Thus, Zhongxian had no choice but to step forward. As for the medicinal wine, he had Hongshe provoke Luo Zhao into making a move, and the Library of Heaven's Path reflected that the latter was a habitual drinker. Through this, it wasn't too hard to deduce that the latter had wine in his storage ring. Actually, what was in the gourd was indeed ordinary wine. The only reason why it could heal wounds was due to him infusing a few surges of zhenqi into the wine while swirling it. The Heaven's Path zhenqi had no color or odor. Even a 6-star master teacher would hardly notice it amidst the overpowering alcoholic aroma. Needless to say, the crowd here. Naturally, Hongshe sparing the other party was also his intention as well. Expelling a 5-star master teacher was a major affair. The headquarters would surely send someone down to look into the matter. Zhongxian might be able to fool the crowd here, but if a thorough investigation was conducted, there was a good chance that something might go awry. This was especially so if the origin of the medicinal wine were to be questioned. He couldn't possibly make Yangshe appear for every single matter, right? Besides, Luo Zhao's actions didn't warrant for such extreme punishment as well. Since that was the case, he might as well drop the matter and win a good impression from the Crown Prince and the others instead. Since he had already achieved his goal, there was no need to drive a cornered man up the wall. Knowing that Yangshe was behind the matter, Hongshe scratched his head and dropped the matter. Given that an advanced master teacher like Yangshe was involved in the matter, it was unadvisable for him to pry any deeper. Since that was the case, he might as well drop the matter. I thank everyone for their gifts. Other than to welcome Wu Shi and the others to Huanyu Empire, there's also another matter we need to settle at the banquet tonight. I believe I need not point out what it is. Knowing that he would only sully the name of Huanyu Empire if he were to continue pursuing this matter, Crown Prince Yi Qian decided to change the topic. Yes. Hearing that the main show was coming up next, everyone straightened their figure, and a graveness surfaced on their face. There were 2 purposes to the banquet tonight. One was to allow the freshmen of Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy to become acquainted with their seniors, while the second was to determine the distribution of slots. For the welcoming, in the end, only Wu Shi was present, and after such a matter had happened, it would be awkward to have them interact now. Since that was the case, the Crown Prince decided to move on the matter regarding the distribution of slots. Perhaps, he could reverse the negative image that Wu Shi had of Huanyu Empire through this. The cleansing lake is the foundation of our Huanyu Empire, and it possesses exceptional effects on consonant spirit realm experts. The reason why everyone here went through so many tests and traveled all the way here is naturally to enter the cleansing lake to cultivate. Yi Qian smiled. However, due to some compelling circumstances, Huanyu Empire will have to take 3 slots from the rest of you. I know that these slots are extremely important, so I invited you over to discuss this matter. I hope that you can come to an agreement on a feasible method to distribute the slots without sullying the harmony among us before the cleansing lake opens. We'll follow your Highness's judgment. The crowd clasped their fists. Since this matter concerns the slots for the cleansing lake, I dare not make a decision for you all on my own. Thus, I suggest we discuss this matter together, Yi Qian said. After a moment of silence, Chen Yu stood up and spoke. Your Highness, if the contribution of 3 slots were to be divided among the 4 vassal states, 3 of the vassal states would have to lose a slot. I fear that this might lead to discontent and disagreement amongst us. Thus, I have a suggestion to propose, but I'm not too sure whether it'll be appropriate. Feel free to speak. Yi Qian gestured. Since each vassal state happens to have 3 slots as well, why don't we arrange it such that the representatives of each empire form a team each, and the team in the last place for the competition will lose all of its slot. Chen Yu spoke his thoughts. As for the format of the competition, I propose that since the top 3 rankers of the respective master-teacher tournaments held in each of the vassal states are here, why don't we have them fight against one another? Naturally, the victor will be determined by 2 out of 3 wins. In other words, each vassal state will send out 1 representative to fight at a time, and the side to win 2 matches will be the victor, whereas the losing side will be eliminated. I agree with Chen Shi's proposal. Since the slots are closely linked to their own benefits, they would have to do their best in the duels. If they were to lose, they only have themselves to blame for their lack of proficiency. Feng Yu spoke up. I agree with it as well. Luo Zhao nodded in agreement. To fight for one's own rights, this is aligned with the master teacher's value of tenacity. Wu Zhen nodded. After a moment of thought, Yi Qian also nodded in approval. Good. Honestly speaking, Chen Yu's suggestion was not bad. With each empire forming a team together, they could spark the camaraderie among fellow cultivators and forge the spirit of working alongside one another against enemies. But if a competition is to be held, what will be the content? Yi Qian asked. I have also given this matter some thought as well. Chen Yu smiled as he continued. Since it'll be a battle among master teachers, taking on a format similar to that of the master teacher tournament would be appropriate. However, that would be too complex and troublesome to arrange. Since that's the case, why don't we limit it to just cultivation duels? Since the cleansing lake is beneficial to one's cultivation, one should prove that one is worthy of it through one's own strength. I believe that this is the most efficient and direct way to determine the distribution of the slot. Indeed, a duel would be the best. This saves a lot of trouble as well. Feng Yu and Luo Zhao chirped in agreement. Humph. Hearing those words, Hong Shu and Zhong Xian glanced at one another. They would be a fool if they still couldn't understand the intentions of the trio at this point. The top 3 rankers of the other 3 vassal states had already consumed a consonant spirit pill each, inducing a huge rise in their cultivation. Even the weakest of them was a small cultivation realm stronger than Luo Xian. How could their team possibly be a match for them in a cultivation duel? Even if the monster, Zhong Xian, could face them, everyone could only fight in a match each. Considering how the victor was determined by the best out of 3 duels, if Bai Jianghai and Luo Xian lost, they would still lose their slots. It seemed like the other party had a backup plan in case their interception failed. Shameless. Chapter 629. One-sided pummeling. The cleansing lake nourishes one's soul, thus making it highly beneficial toward one's cultivation. It's indeed apt to determine the slots based on a cultivation duel. After a moment of contemplation, Yi Qian nodded and said, all right, cultivation duel it'll be then. Each vassal state will form a team each, and the victor will be decided based on the best out of 3. However, this will be a friendly duel, so show some restraint. If one side admits defeat, the fight is to be stopped immediately. There's no need to go so far for a simple duel. Your Highness, I disagree with this proposal. Hong Shu stood up. The other 3 were clearly trying to take advantage of Hongfeng Empire. If they were to accept to those terms, wouldn't their loss be certain? Despite all that had happened, in the face of significant material benefits, the trio still continued to maintain their alliance. After all, if they were to lose the slots, they would have to bear the blame from their own countrymen. Besides, Luo Zhao was no fool. He knew he was framed, and even though Hong Shu and Zhong Xian had spared him, he would surely try to find ways to get even, and this was clearly a good opportunity to do so. As for Feng Yu, to be pummeled to the point that he couldn't even recognize himself when looking into the mirror, how could he possibly be content without exacting vengeance on Hong Shu? Chen Yu also had his own benefits at stake in the matter. As the only one who was still fine from the previous confrontations, he became the spokesperson of their alliance. Yi Qian turned to look at Hong Shu. As your Highness can see, the members of the other teams have already consumed a consonant spirit pill each and enjoyed a significant rise in their cultivation. On the other hand, we have only just arrived at the capital and haven't gotten a chance to purchase it yet. Naturally, our cultivation is far lower than theirs, and we stand little chance at victory. Hong Shu spoke directly. There was nothing embarrassing about his team being weaker. After all, They were indeed at a disadvantageous position given that they hadn't consumed consonant spirit pills yet. Chen Yu harumphed. While cultivation might not be everything to a master teacher, it is still an important aspect. Without sufficient strength, everything else is just illusory. You can't possibly blame us just because you arrived late and couldn't find any consonant spirit pill. Possessing lower cultivation isn't an excuse. Feng Yu interjected. Luo Zhao glared at Hongsha coldly. Hongsha, the both of us know what happened this afternoon. I won't talk about it now, but I'll surely get even with you in the future. However, a cultivation duel is clearly the fairest and most apt way to determine the distribution of the slots. If you aren't confident of winning, why don't you just admit defeat now? The three of them banded together, forcing Hongsha into a corner instantly. Admit defeat. Just as Hongsha was stumped, Zhongxian suddenly spoke up once more. Impossible. Even if one of us were to admit defeat, it should be you. Indeed. Knowing that this young man possessed superior wits and was skilled at dealing with such situation, Hongsha gave him his backing. We admit defeat. Why should we? We have already stated the rules, and you're the only one backing away from the challenge. What else do you want? Chen Yu sneered coldly. What rights do you have to dictate the rules? Zhongxian refuted calmly. Indeed. Why should you be the one to decide the rules? Only then did Hongsha come to a realization, and he quickly chirped in as well. Indeed, we can't dictate the rules. If you find it unsuitable, you can propose an alternative, but naturally, you have to win the majority vote first. Chen Yu's lips crept up. His intentions were clear. The three of us are an alliance, and no matter how fair your rules may be, as long as we aren't agreeable to it, what can you do? Frowning, Hongsha turned to the young man beside him to see how he would reply to this. Oh, I'm glad to hear that this matter is open to discussion. I happen to have an alternative proposal in mind which I would like to raise. Zhongxian chuckled. Feel free to speak, Chen Yu said. However, do note that your proposal will have to undergo our approval first. I believe that you'll approve of it. At which, Zhongxian turned to look at the crowd and said, since it's a team fight between the various vassal states, why must the ones involved in the fighting be the top 3 rankers? If they were to be wounded in their duel, how would they enter the cleansing lake tomorrow? You're right. Hongsha eyes lit up. Then what do you propose then? Chen Yu frowned. Hee. Zhongxian chuckled. My proposal is simple. I think that the 5-star master teachers leading the teams should fight instead. That's right, the 5-star master teachers, huh? Halfway through Hongsha's words, he suddenly realized what was being said and his remaining words jammed in his mouth. He turned to look at Zhongxian with widened eyes and asked, We will fight? Indeed. Not only so, Hongsha will be facing the 3 of you at once. Zhongxian added. I'll face the 3 of them. Hongsha staggered, and he nearly fainted on the spot. Big brother, I thought that you had a good idea in mind. After so much trouble, this is all that you have. Are you so intent on sending me on my way? Putting everything aside, just Luo Zhao himself is a difficult enemy for me already. To fight the 3 of them at once. You want him to face the 3 of us? Not only was Hongsha lightheaded, Luo Zhao, Chen Yu, and Feng Yu were stunned as well. They turned to look at Zhongxian as though he was a fool. Are you serious? That is the fellow that we have been dying to pummel, and you just had to send him to us. Can such a good deal really exist in the world? Why? You dare not accept my deal? Zhongxian taunted with a smirk. You are asking us if we dare to accept your challenge or not. Luo Zhao turned to Hongsha and asked, Are you certain about this? With a constipated expression on his face, Hongsha nodded with tears streaming from his eyes. He didn't know what Zhongsha was up to, but given his previous experience, he knew that the latter wouldn't do anything he was uncertain of. Since he said such words, he must have an idea in mind. If you are scared, just say so. Let's not waste our time on useless chatter. Zhongxian waved his hands in disdain. Scared? I only fear that he will end up kneeling, begging for his life in a moment. Confirming that the other party was serious on this matter, Chen Yu, Luo Zhao, and Feng Yu burst into laughter. Fearing that Hongsha might take back his words, Chen Yu quickly turned to the Crown Prince and said, "Your Highness, you've seen what happened. It's not that we want to take advantage of Hongsha, his is the one who challenged the three of us voluntarily to determine the distribution of the slots. Since Hongfeng Empire insists on the matter, I hope that your Highness can approve of this matter." Not expecting the situation to turn into this, Yi Qian turned to look at Hongsha with a frown and asked, "You are all 5-star low-tier master teachers, transcendent 6-dan primary stage cultivators. Your fighting prowess is approximately equal to one another. Are you certain you want to face the three of them at once?" Given that their fighting prowess were approximate to one another, Hongsha facing the three of them simultaneously was as good as an act of suicide. Of this, the Crown Prince had no doubt. "I'm certain." Before Hongsha could respond, Zhongxian had already replied in his stead. "All right then." Since the parties involved had come to an agreement, Yi Qian decided not to say anything about it. "All right then, I'll be announcing the rules of the duel now. Hongsha will be facing Feng Shu, Luo Shu, and Chen Shu, and the distribution of the slots will be decided through the battle." After which, he waved his hands. A group of guards outside the door immediately came in to clear up the hall to create sufficient space for a duel. Make sure to not to go too far so not harm the camaraderie among fellow states, Yi Qian instructed as the four stepped onto the dueling ring. "Don't worry, we'll make sure to hold ourselves back." Feng Shu sneered coldly. He especially emphasized on the words "hold ourselves back." "Indeed, we've been buddies for many years, so how could we possibly do anything overboard?" Luo Zhao smiled. The both of them had suffered greatly under Hongsha's hands. Given that the other party was seeking death, they found no reason to let him off. "Zhongshu, is there even a possibility that Hongsha can defeat the three of them?" Seeing that the fight was about to start, Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai wiped the sweat off their foreheads nervously. Zhongshu usually looked rather smart, so why would he suddenly make such a foolish decision? 1 against 3. Wasn't this courting death? If Hongsha doesn't go up, do you think that you can win against them? Zhongxian gestured to their counterparts from the other vassal states. The duo's mouths twitched, and they hurriedly shook their heads. While they might have emerged victorious among the other talented master teachers in Hongfeng Empire, the same could be said about the rest of them as well. If they were to face them in a duel, given that the other party's cultivation was higher than theirs, their chances at victory was nearly null. In other words, had they proceeded on with the original duel proposal, their defeat would have been certain. But Hongsha. While they knew that they were unable to win, the same went go Hongsha as well. "Just watch on." Instead of answering the other party's query, Zhongxian simply smiled. "All right then." The duo had no idea where Zhongxian's confidence came from, but it was already too late for them to do anything as well. Thus, they could only turn their worried gazes onto the dueling ring. Standing at the very end of the hall, the Crown Prince watched the dueling ring with a deep frown on his forehead. He had no idea why Hongsha would propose such a suicidal duel. Unable to hold back his intrigue, he turned to Wu Zhen beside him and asked, "Senior, who do you think will win?" Wu Zhen was a 5-star master teacher, and his eye of discernment and experience in such matters were far above his. Perhaps, he might have noticed something that he didn't. Under normal circumstances, it should be impossible for Hongsha to win. However, the very fact that he proposed such a duel means that he must have some kind of trump card. But the truth was that even Wu Zhen couldn't make sense of this matter. With his eye of discernment, he could accurately gauge the respective strength of the four. Hongsha couldn't be considered to be exceptional among the four, even facing one of them would be difficult for him. Yet, to face 3 of them single-handedly, that was a recipe for disaster. To insist on fighting such a duel, just what could be going through his head? Let's just watch on. Perhaps, there might be a turnaround. Wu Zhen racked his brain but couldn't find an answer. Shaking his head, he decided to simply watch on with an open mind. UN. The Crown Prince nodded. Turning his gaze to the dueling ring, he said, "Hongsha has always been a dependable person. Perhaps he might really have a good idea in mind. Look, it's starting." While the duo was speaking, the duel started. Hoo hoo hoo. The three transcendent mortal 6 Dan experts, Luo Zhao, Chen Yu, and Feng Yu, moved simultaneously and sealed space with the overwhelming pressure from their cultivation. Fearing that Hong Shi might have a trump card up his sleeves, the trio didn't use their full might instantly. Instead, they surrounded him and traded some blows with him to test him out first. But after trading a few blows, a bizarre expression slowly crept onto their faces. At this moment, Feng Yu suddenly launched a fist. Peng! It struck Hong Shi's face squarely, and blood immediately flowed out from his nose. Ah! Not expecting his sneak attack to succeed, Feng Yu's eyes widened, and his body trembled in agitation. Due to his overexcitement, he accidentally tore open one of his wounds, and a wave of intense pain immediately struck him. Dependable. Must have some kind of trump card. Seeing that even Feng Yu, a fellow so severely injured that it looked like he might just fall dead at any moment, actually managed to strike Hong Shi's face so easily, Wu Shi was dumbfounded. Why, does it seem like a one-sided pummeling instead? Staff cleric, just to re-emphasize since most people have been asking me recently, Library of Heaven's Path has always been going by a release rate of 11 chapters a week, 2 on Monday to Thursday and 1 on Friday to Sunday. The recent more frequent updates are bonus chapters rather than official ones. Also, please don't refer to the update rate outside. That's by no means official and it only reflects the average update rate I have been at in recent times. Chapter 630, Guiding Hong Shi indeed. Crown Prince Yi Qian also widened his eyes in astonishment. Given how you arrogantly declared that you were going to challenge the three of them at once, I thought that you must have some kind of trump card that would allow you to defeat them. Or at the very least, you should have been able to fight on par with them. And yet, in just a moment, you were already bleeding from your nose. What are you up to? How was this a duel? This was clearly a one-sided pummeling. Perhaps he hasn't caught the flow of the battle yet and accidentally got careless. Yi Qian tried to rationalize the situation before him, but before he could finish his words, Luo Zhao's fist struck Hong Shi's nose as well. Blood immediately spurted out from the latter's nose. Cough cough. Fine, I was mistaken. He isn't a match for the three of them at all. Yi Qian nearly choked on his saliva, and eventually, he shook his head in disappointment. Hong Shi wasn't weak at all, but fighting against three people with similar fighting prowess simultaneously was no easy feat as the saying goes, hardly can 2 fists rival 4 hands. But at this moment, Hong Shi was facing 6. In the blink of an eye, he was already struck several times, and his face started swelling up. Watching the sight from the banquet table, Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai were on the verge of going insane. They thought that, given how confident Zhong Xian was, Hong Shi would wipe the floor with the three of them and successfully win the slots for them. Who knew that he would be beaten up right from the start? Zhong Shi, what's going on? They quickly turned their sights to Zhong Xian, only to see the fellow with his eyes closed as if dozing off. The duo immediately staggered on the spot. It was just a moment that you convinced Hong Shi to go up confidently, but now that the battle had begun, you actually started sleeping. What are you up to? Even if you want to play a prank, you do know that now isn't the time, right? If not for the fact that they had come together from Myriad Kingdom Alliance, they would have really thought that the other party was a spy. Zhong Shi, what do I do? Under the furious assault of the 3 5-star master teachers, Hong Shi was about to come to the limit of his endurance. He quickly sent a telepathic message to Zhong Shi. Before the battle, Zhong Shi told him that he would offer him some pointers to win after analyzing the movements of the other three. At this moment, his face had already swelled to the size of a pig's head already, but the other party hadn't said a word at all. Panicking, he quickly turned his gaze over, but with a single look, tears immediately flowed down his eyes. Aren't you going to look at their movements and analyze their flaws so as to offer me pointers? Can you even see their movements with your eyes closed? I'm done for. In an instant, desolation struck Hong Shi. If he had known earlier, he would have never believed the nonsense of this fellow. Not only were they going to lose the 3 slots, he was even going to get beaten up badly at that. What the heck was this? Just as Hong Shi was giving all hope, he suddenly heard a faint voice by his ear. Advance half a kai forward and inch slightly to the left. Use the 7th form of origin palm. Afterward, bend forward and use the 3rd stroke of dragon capturing palm. Zhongshe. Hearing the voice, Hongshe suddenly jolted. He glanced to the side and saw that, at some point, the young man had already opened his eyes, and a bright gleam glowed in them. All right. Seeing the composed and confident posture of the other party, Hongshe couldn't help but feel inclined to trust him. Gritting his teeth, he immediately moved as the other party said, "I thought that you might have grown formidable given how you dared to challenge the 3 of us at once. To think that you would be such a disappointment." After striking Hongshe's face squarely twice, confidence glowed brightly from Fengshe's face. At this moment, his wounds didn't seem to hurt as much anymore. "Stop spouting nonsense. Beat him into surrendering first." Luo Zhao was also equally excited. He was still burning with rage from being slapped in public. With such an ideal opportunity for vengeance lying right before him, how could he possibly allow it to slip by? Roaring furiously, his hands thrusted forward so quickly that it looked as though he had 8 hands. Spirit Intermediate Tier Battle Technique, Hexad Arm Divine Fist. Indeed. Since his courting death, let's grant his wish. Bellowing loudly, Chen Yu sent a kick over. Even though his kick wasn't a battle technique, it was well positioned to strike at Hongshe's blind spot. Fengshe assaulting from behind, Luo Zhao from above, and Chen Yu from below. In an instant, the trio had sealed all routes of escape, putting Hongshe in a desperate position. Just when it was almost certain that Hongshe would surely be severely wounded in this encounter, as though having predicted his opponent's attacks, he suddenly moved forward and stepped into a spot out of range for all 3 attacks. While he had already stepped out of range, the attacks from the trio didn't stop, or rather, they couldn't stop. Feng Yu was punched in the head by Luo Zhao was kicked in the crotch by Chen Yu, and Chen Yu was struck in the chest by Feng Yu. Peng. Crack. Huala. 3 loud sounds echoed simultaneously in the air. The trio found their vision darkening, and they nearly fainted on the spot. In order to teach Hongshe a lesson he would never forget, they had harnessed their full strength behind the previous attack. How could they have known that they would hurt their own teammate instead? Damn it! With a roar, Feng Yu got back up and thrusted his fist at Hongshe furiously. But before his palm could reach, he saw a leg enlarging swiftly in his sight. Peng! His vision momentarily turned dark, and in the next instant, he was already flying in the air. His head crashed through one of the table of the banquet hall, leaving the lower half of his body twitching violently. "You're seeking death." The overwhelming embarrassment that Luo Zhao felt from having struck one another earlier on sent blood gushing to his head. Furious, he charged forward and sent a fist straight toward Luo Zhao. But Hongshe seemed to have predicted his move as well. The other party adept positioned himself at the blind spot of the fist and sent a kick over. Peng! He was struck in the crotch yet again. Woo! A cry of agony, reminiscent of a rooster's call, reverberated loudly in the hall. Luo Zhao immediately fell to the ground, curled up in a fashion similar to a prawn. Even a transcendent mortal 6 Dan expert like him couldn't possibly tolerate being struck twice consecutively in his weakest region. His heart jolted wildly as he suddenly realized that he couldn't feel anything below. "It's your turn." Seeing that he had successfully sent 2 experts of the same tier flying, Hongshe's confidence burst through the roof. He took 2 steps forward before suddenly turning around swiftly with an outstretched palm. Pa! The sound of a palm striking a cheek echoed. Chen Yu staggered backward weakly, and a mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. If one were to take a closer look, one could see 3 to 4 teeth amidst the blooded mess. Previously, when he struck Luo Zhao, he had held back. But now that they were in a battle, there was no longer any reason to do so. If not for the other party's enhanced physical resilience, the full might slap of a transcendent mortal 6 Dan might very well have knocked his head off his neck. Seeing this sight, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone's eyes were popping from their sockets, and they found themselves pushed to the brink of insanity. Wasn't Hongshe still getting beaten up just a moment ago? Everyone thought that he was moments away from an utter defeat, and yet, in the blink of an eye, he actually made such an astounding comeback. To think that even the combined might of 3 transcendent mortal 6 Dan experts couldn't even stop him. But if he was this formidable, how did he get beaten up in the first place? He saw through the enemy's movements and took countermeasures in advance. That is why Feng Shui and the others are completely helpless before him. The hand that Wu Zhen was using to hold the wine glass turned visibly paler, and a grim expression appeared on his face. Honestly, he didn't have much interest in the duels in such a remote place. Who could have thought that Hong Shui would be such a fearsome person? In just a few moments, he had already finished analyzing the other party's movements and made countermeasures for it. This was no longer about cultivation but eye of discernment. But how formidable must one's eye of discernment and deduction ability be to make these kind of judgments 10 breaths into a battle? Even Wu Zhen knew that he was incapable of such a feat. Probably only those monsters in the academy can achieve such a feat. A few figures surfaced in Wu Zhen's mind. He was a formidable genius as well, and in a remote place like Huanyu Empire, his talent and cultivation were indeed envied by many. However, in Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, where all of the talented master teachers gathered, his skills could only be said to be average. In fact, one of his companions in this trip, Luo Chichi, possessed such astounding talent in fighting that he couldn't even start to compare with her. Considering how Hong Shui only managed to reach 5-star at such an advanced age, he honestly didn't think too highly of the other party. Thus, he never expected to see a battle adaptability that was on par with Luo Chichi and the other monsters of the academy in here. Are you for real? No, something is wrong. If Hong Shui really possesses such capability, his name would surely be known throughout the entire Huanyu Empire. It also doesn't make sense how Luo Jiao and the others managed to strike him earlier on either if that was the case. Wu Zhen frowned. Earlier, when Hong Shui was attacked by the 3 simultaneously, he panicked, causing his movements to be riddled with flaws and poor judgment. If he had such talent in battle, he should have shown it right from the start. It didn't make sense for him to suddenly be boosted in the midst of the battle. Could it be? A slight frown appeared on Wu Zhen's forehead, and he quickly turned his gaze over to the young man who took the initiative to volunteer Hong Shui for the battle. The young man's lips were quivering slightly. Clearly, he was sending instructions telepathically to Hong Shui. Telepathic communication? As I expected. It was obvious that Hong Shui was reluctant to face the 3 in battle, and he had only agreed to it under the insistence of this fellow. Since this fellow had put Hong Shui up to it, he must be confident of victory. Thus, Wu Zhen turned his suspicions to this person, and it seemed like his doubts were proven right. But still, a 4-star master teacher actually managed to influence the outcome of a battle among 5-star master teachers through his pointers. How can that be? The more Wu Zhen thought about it, the more shocked he felt. There were 2 realms between Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan and Transcendent Mortal 6 Dan, but more importantly, there was a fundamental difference in their fighting style as well due to the utilization of soul. Rationally speaking, it should have been impossible for the other party to understand the fighting patterns of Feng Shui and others given his current cultivation realm. But reality had proved that not only did he understand their fighting patterns, he was even able to decipher them, granting Hong Shui an opportunity to make a complete comeback. This eye of discernment was so impressive that it was fearsome. I can verify my hypothesis just by trying it out. After a moment of shock, Wu Zhen suddenly thought of something and his lips crept up. Zhongshe. With a loud shout, Wu Zhen's voice reverberated throughout the entire hall. Stunned, Zhongxian turned his head over. He didn't expect Senior Wu, whom even the Crown Prince had to treat with utmost respect, would suddenly call for him. Peng peng. Ah. In Zhongxian's momentary lapse of concentration, the sound of fists and legs sinking into flesh sounded, and a cry of agony accompanied it. With the abrupt termination of Zhongxian's guidance, Hong Shui fell into a disadvantageous position and was currently in the midst of being lynched once again. An inch diagonally to your forward right. Then, turn around and execute the 8th stroke of dragon capturing palm. Zhongxian began sending instructions telepathically once more. Hoo. Under his instructions, Hong Shui regained the upper hand once more, suppressing the trio to the point that they could hardly catch their breath. Zhongshe. But at that moment, Wu Shi's shout boomed across the room once more. Yes. Zhong Xian turned around. Peng peng. Ah. Hong Shi screamed in agony once more. The hell? Seeing how Hong Shi was struck the instant his instructions stopped, Zhong Xian hurriedly turned his attention back and instructed, leap up slightly and once you land on the ground, retreat 7 steps immediately. Zhong Shi. But before Zhong Xian could finish his words, Wu Zhen's voice boomed across the room once more. What do you want? Zhong Xian was on the verge of breakdown. I am just shouting casually, you don't need to bother about me. Wu Zhen waved his hands casually. Zhong Xian. The hell, was this fellow really a talented student from Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy? Why was he so childish? While Zhong Xian was sighing helplessly, in the dueling ring, Hong Shi was crying. Zhong Shi, can you keep your attention here? You can't toy with me like that. If this goes on, I really might just die. Chapter 631. Lake Ai. Seeing that Hong Shi was on the verge of a breakdown, Zhong Xian couldn't be bothered with Wu Zhen anymore. He focused all of his attention into instructing Hong Shi to victory. On the other hand, Wu Zhen, having affirmed his hypothesis, no longer called Zhong Xian anymore as well. A few minutes later, Feng Yu, Luo Zhao, and Chen Yu were lying on the floor, their bodies filled with wounds. They had surrendered. They had no choice but to do so. No matter what they did, Hong Shi seemed to always be a step ahead of them, leaving them completely helpless. If it had gone on like that, they might even have died. Since that was the case, they admitted defeat. The trio suffered such grievous injuries that even their own parents would probably find it hard to recognize them. If there was any consolation to them, it was that Hong Shi wasn't in a good shape either. His cheeks and eyes were swollen red, his entire body was shaking unsteadily, there was blood all over him. If not for some kind of tenacity driving him, he would have also collapsed to the ground as well. All right. Since Feng Shi, Luo Shi, and Chen Shi have admitted defeat, the 3 slots shall be contributed by their teams. Yi Qian was also surprised to see Hong Shi emerge victorious in the battle. He didn't possess Wu Zhen's sharp intuition, so he failed to see through the little trick involved here. As such, he thought that Hong Shi had defeated the trio with his own strength, and this had left him impressed. Seeing the severe injuries Hong Shi had sustained, Zhong Xian felt a little guilt-ridden. Thus, he stood up and walked over to Wu Shi. Wu Shi, may I request for a cup of medicinal wine for Hong Shi's injuries? If not for this damned fellow calling him time and time again, even though Hong Shi would still have suffered injuries, they wouldn't be as severe as they were now. UN. Wu Shi did also feel a little embarrassed by his previous actions, so he took out the medicinal wine and poured out a cup. Zhong Xian infused a surge of zhenqi into the medicinal wine before passing it over to Hong Shi for him to drink it. It was only in the body that zhenqi could be stored for extended periods of time. In other words, while the gourd of medicinal wine in Wu Shi's possession might still be effective now, it would slowly turn back into ordinary wine. As the Heaven's Path zhenqi contained in the wine flowed through Hong Shi's bloodstream, his injuries began to heal. Thank you, Wu Shi and Zhong Shi. With his injuries recovered, Hong Shi felt refreshed. He quickly clasped his fist in gratitude. He really thought that he would die just now. Honestly speaking, he didn't expect Zhong Shi to be so formidable as to be able to issue instructions that would lead him to an easy victory. After all, those were master teachers of the same rank as him. Even in a 1-to-1, he dared not say he would win. While he had suffered grievous injuries in this battle, he felt that it was worth it given that he was able to defeat the 3 of them. With this, he had brought glory to Hongfeng Empire. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Wu Shi waved his hands. After which, he turned his gaze to Zhong Xian in interest. However, knowing that this wasn't the occasion to be asking anything, he eventually turned away without asking anything. As soon as Zhong Xian and Hong Shi returned to their seats, Feng Shi, Luo Shi, and Chen Shi walked up to Wu Shi and asked, Wu Shi, can we get a cup of medicinal wine as well? They had seen Hong Shi making a complete recovery after drinking the medicinal wine, and this had left them green in envy. Feeling the aches throughout their bodies, they toughened up their courage and walked over to ask. Fine. Wu Shi's eyelids twitched. He was unwilling to offer the medicinal wine to them, but eventually, he still took it out and poured a cup for each of them. Our gratitude to Wu Shi. They quickly drank it down, and a spicy taste rushed up their throat. After waiting for a moment, they realized that their injuries were still as severe as before. Perplexed, they asked, Wu Shi, could you have taken the wrong gourd? Impossible, this is surely the one that I received earlier. Wu Shi frowned. It might not be working as well due to your severe injuries. Why don't you try applying it externally? Saying so, he poured another cup for them. You're right. Previously, Zhongxian also poured the wine on Bai Shi's arm to heal it. Perhaps due to their injuries being much more severe, its effectiveness might be limited through consumption. With such thoughts in mind, they poured the wine carefully on their injuries. Tzzzzzz. The burning sensation of the alcohol left them gritting their teeth in pain. They waited for a long moment, but there was no sign of their injuries recovering. On the contrary, there were signs that pus was forming instead. Feng Yu, Luo Zhao, and Chen Yu were stumped. Isn't this a saint recovery medicine that will fully heal our injuries just by applying it? Then why are our wounds not healing that? On top of that, what is with that sharp pain accompanied with a slight itch on them? Hong Shi obviously recovered after drinking the wine given though. Could Wu Shi have offered them a smaller portion out of his bias? Wu Shi, I think we might need more medicine. Can you give us a few more cups? Luo Zhao asked timidly. Scram. Wu Shi howled. You must be joking. There is only a gourd of the recovery wine Hong Shi gave, and yet you ask for a cup after another. That's enough of you. But still, he did feel a little perplexed over the matter. Was the effectiveness weakened due to their serious injuries? That must be the case. After all, the few of them did look slightly better than they did before. In truth, while most of the zhenqi that Zhongxian had infused into the wine had dissipated, some of it still lingered. Thus, even though Luo Zhao and the others didn't make a full recovery like Hong Shi, they still recovered significantly. Their wounds had stopped bleeding, and walking wasn't a problem for them anymore. Seeing Wu Shi flying into a rage, Luo Zhao and the others didn't dare to push their case any further. Thus, they hurriedly returned. Since the slots have been decided, let's allocate the zones now. Since the distribution of the slots had been confirmed, Yi Qian turned to look at the crowd and said, the cleansing lake is infused with the spiritual energy from the verdant mountain and dragon-scaled river, granting it the ability to nourish one's soul. As such, this spirit lake is known as the divine land of Huanyu Empire. Even members of the royal family are not allowed to enter the premises as they please, they have to obey the rules of entering only every decade, at the time of the opening of the cleansing lake. Since you all should know this, I won't elaborate on it. Hong Shi and the others nodded. This was common knowledge for them. As a blessed land for cultivators, the cleansing lake possesses mystical effects to the soul. However, one thing you might be unaware of is that it's also an extremely dangerous place. The slightest carelessness could possibly result in death. Yi Qian spoke grimly. An extremely dangerous place. Death. Isn't it a spirit lake rich in spiritual energy? Indeed, why would it be dangerous? Everyone was taken aback. Even Luo Zhao, Feng Yu, and the others also frowned questioningly. They had heard of the cleansing lake's unique property in nourishing one's soul and advancing one's cultivation, but they had never known it to be fraught with danger. What kind of danger could a lake rich in spiritual energy possibly have? It's no lie that the cleansing lake is a spirit lake. However, the current flowing within the lake is extremely violent, and even a transcendent mortal 9-dan cultivator could be killed easily in it. Back then, when our founding ancestor found this blessed land, he sent in his men to investigate the region, only to have none of them return, Yi Qian explained gravely. Even transcendent mortal 9-dan cultivators could be killed easily. Everyone was stunned. Then, if even a transcendent mortal 9-dan cultivator couldn't survive the currents of the lake, weren't they seeking death by entering it? What kind of blessed land for cultivation was this? There's no need to panic, allow me to finish my words first. Seeing the shocked expression on everyone's faces, Yi Qian chuckled. The dangers regarding the cleansing lake are very real, I'm not exaggerating them in any way. However, there's a solution to the matter. After many years of scouting and innumerable lives paving the way forward, we finally uncovered some of the secrets of the lake. There's a safe zone in the cleansing lake where cultivators can enjoy the benefits of the lake without being crushed to a pulp. We call this location the Lake Eye. The Lake Eye is where the spiritual energy from the various sources intersect and form a fragile balance, thus creating a safe zone. However, the Lake Eye only appear once every 10 years. Lake Eye. Once every 10 years. Is this the reason why the cleansing lake only opens once every 10 years? That must be the case. Upon hearing the explanation, everyone suddenly came to a realization. They had always been puzzled as to why the cleansing lake only opened once every 10 years. Initially, they thought that the royal family was just maintaining a monopoly over the lake, but from the looks of it now, they were sorely mistaken. The true reason was to protect them from danger. Lake eyes aren't too big, each of them only has a radius of around 2 meters. Furthermore, the amount of spiritual energy harnessed in each of them is limited as well. Once all of the energy inside is fully absorbed, the lake eye will collapse inward. In other words, the person cultivating inside a lake eye must escape immediately upon realizing the spiritual energy inside is dying out. Otherwise, one might just lose his life in the lake, said Yi Qian. Radius of 2 meters. The amount of spiritual energy harnessed is limited. Then, everyone was perplexed. Considering that 15 people were entering the cleansing lake, how could a lake eye with a radius of 2 meters possibly be enough? If they were to take turns, considering how the spiritual energy in the lake eye was limited, they would have to decide on the order of entry as well. As everyone should know, when a soul is trapped within a body, it is equivalent to having a cage around it. Under such circumstances, its growth will be severely limited. Zhong Xian nodded in agreement. The body of an ordinary cultivator was no different from a shackle to a soul, locking it tightly in place. Even if one were to obtain manuals to cultivate one's soul would still be limited to the boundaries of one's body. To make an analogy, it was just like a potted plant. No matter how far the roots of a plant could reach, it would be confined to the limits of the pot. After making many calculations, we have found that the time limit for both consonant spirit realm and cosmos bridge realm cultivators is 3 days. Any longer than that and the cleansing lake will be rendered ineffective. Besides, 3 days is also the duration that a lake eye can maintain itself for. As such, the Empire has determined a time limit of 3 days for this. Continuing, Yi Qian said, the champions for the Master Teacher Tournament will be given 3 days, first runner-up 2 days, and second runner-up 1 day. The crowd nodded. This was also the prize promised in the Master Teacher Tournament. The first place will be given 3 days to cultivate at Cleansing Lake, the second place 2 days, and the third place 1 day. Everyone must be perplexed as to how a lake eye with a radius of 2 meters can have 15 people cultivating in it at the same time. In truth, 10 lake eyes will appear each time the cleansing lake opens. 10. That's right, 10. Based on previous rules, the 5 champions of the Master Teacher Tournament will be granted a lake eye of their own to cultivate for 3 days, whereas the second and third place will share a lake eye, and they will cultivate for 2 days and 1 day respectively. The 5 champions would take up 5 lake eyes on their own, whereas the 10 second places and third places, due to their differing cultivation duration as per their prize, would share the other 5. In this way, the 10 lake eyes were fairly distributed. However, this year is an exception, at which, Yi Qian paused for a moment before continuing. 6th Princess, Senior Wu, and the others would require a lake eye each, and I also need an individual one as well. Thus, you will have to share the remaining 5 amongst yourselves. Chapter 632. I'll challenge all of you. We have to share the remaining 5. Everyone frowned. This was especially so for the champions in Fengshe, Luoshe, and Chensha's groups. Under normal circumstances, they would be entitled to an entire lake eye themselves. However, now that they had to share their resources, there would surely be insufficient spiritual energy in the lake for them to cultivate for 3 days. But while they felt indignant, there was nothing they could do. The 6th Princess, Wu Zhan, and the others were grade 2 students from the Master Teacher Academy, as well as their future seniors. It would be improper to have them share the lake eye while they each took one up for themselves. Putting everything aside, Even if the sixth princess volunteered to share her lake eye, who would dare to take up the offer? Tadishina, the princess of Hongyuan Empire, a 5-star master teacher, only if one was tired of living. UN. I feel apologetic toward you regarding this matter as well. I'll leave the distribution of the lake eyes to you all. Yi Qian said apologetically. I'm fine with any allocation you all decide upon. We get to choose. All right then. Luo Zhao hesitated for a moment before nodding. I have a proposal. Other than the crown prince, there's still another master teacher from Huanyu Empire. He, along with Hongfeng Empire, will share 2 lake eye, whereas Hongfeng, Qianfeng, and Zhuyu will take the remaining 3. Indeed, we'll concede since Hongfeng Empire won the duel. I'm willing to give them the 2 lake eyes. Chen Yu and Feng Yu's eyes lit up. If they could take down 1 lake eye each, they could have their top 3 cultivate a day each in the lake eye. This would be the best deal they could take. No way. Hong Shi frowned. In the previous duel, the other party had already lost 3 slots, and they only had 6 people who could enter the cleansing lake. 6 people sharing 3 lake eye against 4 people sharing 2 lake eye, wouldn't their position be equal then? What would be the point of the previous duel then? You must be joking. Then what do you want? Luo Zhao frowned. We want the 2 lake eyes independently. The remaining 3 shall be shared among you and the master teacher from Huanyu Empire, Hong Shi said. You want to take 2 lake eyes independently? You're dreaming. Feng Yu and Chen Yu harumphed. Even taking into account the 3 slots they had just lost, if they were to allow Hongfeng Empire to take 2 lake eyes independently, that would be equivalent to 7 people sharing 3 lake eyes. That would be a huge disadvantage to them. How could they agree to it? I disagree to it as well. Luo Zhao shook his head. You disagree to the matter? Then why don't we fight once more to decide this? Since we have all taken the medicinal wine and our injuries are mostly healed. Hong Shi flung his sleeves and stood up. After winning a match against the 3 of them, he was overflowing with confidence. Fight! The mouths of Luo Zhao and the others twitched. Fight your head. Besides, which of your eyes saw that our injuries are mostly recovered? You're able to walk perfectly fine, but everyone can clearly see that we're limping around. We weren't able to defeat you earlier on when we were in a better condition. How could we possibly defeat you now? Why? You dare not accept my challenge? Stop finding excuses. Each of you had 2 cups of medicinal wine earlier, whereas I only took 1. Even though I look fine on the surface, my injuries are as severe as yours. Hong Shi raised his eyebrows. The heck with your as severe as yours. Luo Zhao and the others were rendered speechless. You are able to walk around perfectly normally, whereas we can't even sit steadily, and you say that your injuries are as severe as ours? You sure are thick-skinned, you know. Fine, let's fight then. However, it won't be us since we just had a match, and there would be little point in repeating the same thing. Why don't we have the other members of our group clash it out? Gritting his teeth, Chen Yu gestured to the members of his group behind him. Indeed, instead of fighting once more, why don't we leave it to them to determine the distribution of the lake eye? In any case, they are the ones who will be impacted by the ultimate outcome. Luo Zhao's eyes shone with excitement as he quickly nodded in agreement. The winning team will get to choose which of the 2 proposals we'll go by. No. Like I said just now, the members of your teams have consumed consonant spirit pills, and this is unfair to my team. Seeing the other party insist on dueling with Zhong Shi and the others, Hong Shi hurriedly rejected the idea. Even the member with the weakest cultivation amongst them was a small realm higher than the member with the highest cultivation in his group. How could his group possibly win the duel? If he were to agree to the duel, there would be no doubt that they would lose. The consonant spirit pill can only be found in the capital, and in this sense, we're all on equal standing. You only have yourself to blame for a lack of preparation for the matter. Feng Yu harumphed. So, do you dare or not? Let me just remind you that we have the majority here. If you insist on having it your way, we can just bypass your objection when it comes down to it. Indeed. We need not waste our time arguing with you. If you refuse to agree to the duel, I suggest you just admit defeat. Luo Zhao added. The three of them had already made up their minds to never fight with Hongsha ever again, so it was impossible for them to accept the latter's challenge. On the other hand, the men that they brought here had already consumed a consonant spirit pill each. With their superior cultivation, wouldn't it be a walk in the park for them to suppress those from Hongfeng Empire? Seeing the three of them gang up against him, Hongsha's breathing hastened in anger. He was just about to say something when Zhongxian suddenly interjected. All right then, we can accept your challenge, however, don't you think a 3 versus 3 is a too troublesome? Troublesome? Seeing the same fellow from before speaking up again, Feng Yu and Luo Zhao narrowed their eyes. Then what do you suggest? Simple, I'll face all 9 of your men alone. I don't mind whether you come one by one or all at the same time. As long as you defeat me, our Hongfeng Empire will give all of our lake eyes to you, but if you lose, you will give all of your lake eyes to us. What do you think of it? Zhongxian glanced at them with a faint smile. You want to fight 9 people single-handedly? This fellow must be joking. Indeed. A mere transcendent mortal 4-dan cultivator actually thinks he can defeat 9 consonant spirit realm cultivators in a duel? He must be dreaming. In an instant, an uproar broke out in the room. Having emerged triumphant from the master-teacher tournaments in their respective regions, they were all proud geniuses. How could they possibly allow a fellow who was far weaker than them to mock them? This was intolerable. Luosha, allow us to teach that arrogant brat a lesson. He has been grating on my nerves right from the start. A young man standing behind Luo Zhao stood up, and his aura suddenly burst forth, consonant spirit realm advanced stage. He possessed the strongest fighting prowess even among the other 8 who had consumed consonant spirit pills as well. Fengshe, I'll go. That fellow caused you so much pain. If I don't get him apologizing on his knees, I will be unworthy to be called a master teacher of Fengyuan Empire. A young man behind Fengshe also stood up. Following the duo, the other 7 people behind Fengshe, Luo Shu, and Chen Shi also couldn't remain seated any longer, and they glared at Zhongxian furiously. If looks could kill, he would have been torn to shreds then. Seeing the agitation and anger in everyone's eyes, Luo Shu asked once more, "Are you certain you want to duel with him?" "That's right. That fellow has no respect for his elders at all. He deserves to be taught a lesson." The group of 9 hollered angrily. Very few people knew that Fengshe had plummeted from the sky due to this fellow, but they had seen how he made things difficult for Luo Shu earlier. In fact, the duel between Hongshe and the 3 pavilion masters was his idea as well. Not to mention, he was uttering such arrogant words at the moment. Unforgivable. This. Luo Shu turned to Fengshe and Chen Shi. This matter was important. He dared not represent the entire group. After all, no one thought that Hongshe would be able to defeat the 3 of them earlier as well, but reality shoved the contrary to their faces. This fellow may seem to be the weakest of the group, but what if he had some trump cards up his sleeves? To think that you would hesitate so long at my challenge. If you dare not accept it, we can drop the idea. I knew that you were all spineless cowards. Master teachers. Geniuses. Pooey. Before Fengshe and Chen Shi could make their stand, the young man before them shook his head in disappointment. You. Luo Shu and the others exploded into rage. This fellow was really too much. This was especially with the expression on his face at this moment. He was clearly making a mockery out of them. Gritting his teeth savagely, Luo Zhao said, "Fine, we'll accept the challenge. However, I want to confirm if you can represent your entire team. If I lose, all of Hongfeng's lake eyes will be given to you. If you lose, all of your lake eyes will be given to us. Rest assured, my words can represent my team," Zhongxian said nonchalantly. "All right then," Luo Zhao gestured to the person behind him. Li Shulian. Luo Shu. The consonant spirit realm advanced stage expert who was the first to confront Zhongxian earlier stepped forward. He was the champion of Qianfeng Empire's master-teacher tournament, Shulian Gongzi. Clenching his fists tightly, Luo Zhao angrily instructed, "Go up and teach him a lesson. Make him know that there's always a higher mountain." In a normal duel between master-teachers, no matter how angry either side was at the other, they would be instructed to stop once the victor was clear. Yet, Luo Shi was now telling Sholian Gongzi to beat Zhong Shen up thoroughly. This reflected how angry he was at this moment. Don't worry, Luo Shi. I'll have him know the difference between clarifying turbidity realm and consonant spirit realm. Harumphing coldly, Sholian Gongzi stepped forward and gestured to Zhong Shen. Aren't you arrogant? Come, let me see if your skills are as formidable as your mouth. Zhongshe, be careful. Hongshe said worriedly. He had great confidence in Zhongshe's skill, but the opponent he was facing was a consonant spirit realm advanced stage cultivator. There was simply too huge a gap between the both of them. If he were to lose, Hongfeng Empire would lose all of their lake eyes, and everything they had done before would be in vain. Behind him, Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai were frowning deeply. Zhongshe had indeed performed spectacularly back in Myriad Kingdom Alliance, but still, they found it hard to believe that he could match a consonant spirit realm advanced stage cultivator. Don't worry. Noticing the worry in everyone's eyes, Zhong Shen chuckled lightly. He walked to the center of the room and glanced at the young man before saying, I don't think you'll suffice. You should have the 8 of them come up as well. Otherwise, I would feel like I'm bullying you all. You. Seeing how the other party was still spouting such arrogant words now, Sholian Gongzi clenched his fists tightly. There's no need for it. I'm more than enough to handle you. Who? Roaring angrily, he charged forward and smashed a fist at Zhong Shen's face. At consonant spirit realm advanced stage, one's soul was one with one's body. Amidst the furious gust of wind, there was a soul pressure that rendered one incapable of sprouting any thoughts of retaliation. If it was any other clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle cultivator, he would have lost instantly to this blow without making a single move at all. But Zhong Shen was no ordinary clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle cultivator. Upon seeing the fist, he simply chuckled lightly. Bending his middle finger and thumb together, he flicked lightly. Peng! The tip of Zhong Shen's finger collided with Sholian Gongzi's fist. Before the latter could even process what was going on, he was flying in the air. After a flight of roughly a dozen meters, he crashed into one of the vats of wine placed in the distance, soaking his entire body in wine. Placing his hands behind his back, Zhong Shen stared down on Sholian Gongzi, who was lying weakly on the floor, and chuckled. It seems like you aren't enough at all. Chapter 633, Fighting with his eyes closed. Silence. Everyone rubbed their eyes forcefully, thinking that their eyes might be playing tricks on them. That was a transcendent mortal 5-dan consonant spirit realm advanced stage expert. Despite executing an attack utilizing his full might, he was actually sent flying back with a light flick of the other party's finger. How much strength did that flick harness? How could a consonant spirit realm expert be sent flying with a single flick? Hongshe widened his eyes, and he subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. To achieve that feat with a flick, one must have perfect understanding of the force and trajectory of the attack. Even Hongshe himself would find it hard to accomplish such a feat in a real battle. Yet, the other party managed to do it so easily. Could the other party's clarifying turbidity realm be feigned? Could the other party actually be at the Cosmos Bridge realm just like him? But that couldn't be. He was around when the other party achieved a breakthrough to clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle. To reach Cosmos Bridge realm within a short month. Impossible. Bai Jianghai widened his eyes in shock at the scene as tears threatened to flow down his eyes. It seems like he didn't use his full strength when he fought with me back then. To think that I thought that I would be able to surpass him as long as I put in some hard work. He had thought that luck had played a huge factor in the other party's victory over him, and as long as he cultivated diligently, he would be able to catch up very quickly. But at this moment, he realized that he couldn't be any more mistaken than that. The other party probably didn't even use a tenth of his true strength when fighting with him. Putting everything aside, even 10 of him wouldn't survive that flick. Luo Xian also felt his throat turning dry. He had bragged before his teacher, Luo Huang, that Zhong Shi was nothing when the other party induced 10 li of vacuum with his spirit-gathering dictum at the next moment. Now, the other party even defeated a transcendent mortal 5-dan consonant spirit realm advanced stage expert with a single flick of his finger. How could he ever match up to him? It felt like they existed in completely different dimensions. How in the world did that fellow do it? Crown Prince Yi Qian uttered in disbelief. Narrowing his eyes, Wu Zhen analyzed the move. That single flick from Zhongshe probably harnesses a might of at least 5 million ding. 5 million ding? This. Isn't he just a clarifying turbidity realm cultivator? Yi Qian swayed feebly from astonishment. A typical clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle cultivator should only possess 1,600,000 ding of strength. In fact, even a consonant spirit realm pinnacle cultivator would only possess 3,200,000 ding of strength. 5 million ding, that was a might comparable to a Cosmos Bridge realm intermediate stage cultivator. How could a transcendent mortal 4-dan harness such force? I've no idea either. However, the Master Teacher continent is extremely big, and there are many unique constitutions out there. Based on what I know, there are indeed some people who possess the talent of Herculean strength. While their cultivation may not be particularly high, they are able to exert strength far beyond their cultivation realm, Wu Zhen said. Yi Qian suddenly recalled something and asked, Senior is saying that he might have a unique constitution that augments his strength. Then, could he be just like that person? Indeed, he's probably just like that Senior. Wu Zhen nodded. Turning back to look at Zhongshen, he said, Seems like a formidable figure is about to rise from your Huanyu Empire. If he really does possess that kind of talent, then indeed. Recalling that person's extraordinary and fearsome abilities, Yi Qian couldn't conceal his agitation. Given that Zhongshe originated from Huanyu Empire, if he were to make it big, the standing of the empire would also rise proportionately. Ignoring the other party's agitation, Wu Zhen said, It's still a little too early to come to a conclusion now. Let's watch on first. UN. Yi Qian replied as he turned his sight back to the dueling ring anxiously. Zhongshen's feat of defeating Shulian Gongzi in a single blow had left everyone flabbergasted. Luo Shi and the others had their mouths widened, unable to utter a single word. It took a while before Luo Shi recovered, and he immediately instructed anxiously, There is something unusual about this fellow. The rest of you should attack together. All of their slots for the cleansing lake, which came only once every decade, were at stake here. It might seem a little underhanded, but there was no other choice now. Who? Hearing those words, the remaining 8 members immediately stepped forth and surrounded Zhongshen. You're all coming at me together? Good. Zhongshen stretched his back lazily. Previously, when he offered instructions to Hongshu in his battle, he suddenly thought of something. This group of people came at a perfect moment, he could use them to verify his doubts. Who? With a quick dash, Zhongshen immediately appeared before one of the 8. Without any intricate movements, he raised his palm and thrust it toward the man. Damn it! Seeing that he was the first one to be attacked, the young man's face darkened. Howling furiously, he gathered his strength from every muscle in his body and struck back. Just as the fist and palm were about to collide with one another, Zhongshe's figure suddenly swayed before him. Before he knew it, a leg suddenly flew toward his abdomen. The heck! The young man's eyes nearly popped out from his sockets upon seeing the leg. Before he could even exclaim in shock, he was sent flying. Huge mouthfuls of blood spewed from his mouth. He was on the verge of tears. Wasn't this way too underhanded? Given how the other party looked as though he had put all of his strength into that palm, he could have never guessed that it was only a feint, and that the real threat was lying beneath. After sending one flying, Zhongshen immediately stepped backward. His movement had allowed him to dodge the fist of another master teacher who was attempting to backstab him while his attention was preoccupied. Following which, he jerked his arm and struck the other party's lower jaw. Who? That master teacher immediately saw his vision darken before he flew into the air. Peng 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 peng. After dealing with the 2, Zhongshen treaded around the remaining 6 as though a phantom. It was as if he could foresee how his opponents would collaborate with one another and how they would attack. Every single time he launched an attack, someone would surely be sent flying. As I expected. As the group was being cleared one by one, the gleam in Zhongshen's eyes gradually brightened. When he instructed Hongshu on how he should deal with Luo Shi and the others, he attempted to use the Library of Heaven's Path to see their flaws. He thought there would be a total of 3 books compiled on Luo Jiao, Feng Yu, and Chen Yu respectively, but to his surprise, only one was formed. Written in it was the flaws of the collaboration among the trio. In other words, the Library of Heaven's Path had viewed their collaboration as an entirety and evaluated the 3 of them as a whole. Through exploiting the flaws written on the book, not only would one be able to interrupt one's opponent's momentum, one would also be able to predict one's opponent's movements and defeat them easily. In other words, with this ability, it mattered not to Zhongxian how many opponents he had to face. This was precisely the reason why he wanted to challenge all 9 of them at once to test it out. And the effects really didn't let him down. Despite fighting 8 opponents whose cultivation bases were significantly higher than his, he didn't feel the slightest pressure at all. I'll exploit this flaw this time. Move left by 3 Kai and launch a back kick. While Zhongxian's consciousness was immersed in the Library of Heaven's Path, his body was moving accordingly to exploit the flaws written on the books, thus dodging every single attack of his opponents and counterattacking at every possible opportunity. After kicking another one flying, Zhongxian rubbed his glabella stressfully. These fellows' collaboration is really poor. There are flaws here and there. Sigh, I'm finding hard to decide which flaw I should exploit from this huge list. How frustrating. The other party had only formed a team on the spot, so there were a lot of flaws in their collaboration. There were several hundred listed throughout the entire book. It was fortunate that Zhongxian didn't suffer from decidophobia, or else he would surely faint from stress. But even so, the huge range of possible flaws to exploit and counterattacks he could make still made him feel a little troubled. Instead of getting tired from fighting, he was suffering due to the astounding number of ways to defeat his opponents. If his opponents were to learn of this, they would surely cry themselves to death. Forget it, I'll just point randomly at the flaws. Whichever I point on would be the one I'll exploit. Closing his eyes, Zhongxian randomly pointed at a part of the book, and the flaw he was pointing at immediately surfaced in his mind. Alright, this will be it. Having decided on the flaw to exploit, Zhongxian swiftly analyzed the way to best exploit it before diving into the crowd once more. Peng 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 peng. Yet another scream of agony echoed in the hall. In the royal palace located not too far away from the crown prince's eastern palace, Emperor Yi Wentian was seated on his high throne. Standing before him was a green-robed elder with snowy white beard. He carried an exceptional aura that reflected both erudition and composure. If Hong She were here, he would surely be able to recognize the other party as his teacher, the Pavilion Master of the Huanyu Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, 5-star high-tier Master Teacher Wei Jian. The cleansing lake will be opening tomorrow. I wonder how the matter regarding the distribution of the slots is going on. Yi Wentian muttered with a frown. It was Yi Qian's initiative to befriend the 6th princess and the others. As such, he decided to leave this entire matter for Yi Qian to handle. It had been a while since the banquet had begun, so he began to wonder if the matter had been decided already or not. Your Majesty, there's no need to worry. His Highness has always been a composed and reliable person, not to mention, he's also a genius master teacher as well. A matter as small as this can't possibly trip him up. Wei Jiang smiled. Besides, didn't you send someone to look into that matter? He should be coming back to report on the matter very soon. You're right. Yi Wentian smiled. It might be my age catching up with me. I'm finding myself worrying over the smallest matters nowadays. Yi Wentian sighed deeply. At that moment, a guard suddenly walked into the room with a dumbstruck face. How is it? Is the matter regarding the distribution of slots confirmed yet? Yi Wentian asked with a frown. The guard hurriedly clasped his fist. Reporting to Your Majesty, the matter has been settled. Oh, how was it settled? Tell me about it. Yi Wentian asked in curiosity. The matter regarding the slots to enter the cleansing lake was decided by a duel among the 4 great vassal states, the guard said. A duel? That is a wise decision. It would indeed be good to have the young geniuses from each vassal state interact with one another. Yi Wentian chuckled. That's not it. It was not the young geniuses from the vassal states who fought with one another but Hong Shi from Hongfeng Empire single-handedly facing Luo Shi, Feng Shi, and Chen Shi. Furthermore. At which, the guard suddenly paused for a short moment. It seemed as though he was still trying to convince himself that he wasn't dreaming. Hong Shi managed to defeat all three of the pavilion masters. And thus, the 3 slots are to be contributed by Hongfeng, Qianfeng, and Zhuyu Empire. You mean that Hong Qian single-handedly defeated Luo Zhao, Feng Yu, and Chen Yu? Jiang Wei widened his eyes in disbelief. Describe the duel to me in detail. Yes. The guard hurriedly recounted what he had seen previously. How can this be? Hearing the other party's recount of the story, Jiang Wei and Yi Wentian trembled in shock. They were well aware of how strong Hong Qian was. To single-handedly defeat 3 opponents of the same fighting prowess. How could that be possible? After a moment of shock, Yi Wentian suddenly thought of something and asked, putting that aside, so the matter regarding the slots have been decided. Then what about the 5 lake eyes? As the emperor, he also knew that the allocation of the lake eyes was the crux of this matter. The young master teacher from Hongfeng Empire that I just spoke of, Zhongshe, fought against all 9 young master teachers from Fengyuan, Qianfeng, and Zhuyu simultaneously, and he emerged victorious. As such, Hongfeng Empire is now in possession of all of the lake eyes. The guard said. He fought against 9 master teachers simultaneously? Didn't you just say that this Zhongshe only possesses a cultivation of clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle, and is the weakest among all of the master teachers there? Yi Wentian couldn't help but exclaim. Given that all 9 opponents are stronger than him, how in the world did he fight? Did he use some kind of special means? A clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle fighting against 9 consonant spirit realm experts? How could he possibly have one? How in the world did he fight against them? Did he use some kind of special trick? The guard swallowed his saliva, and a bizarre expression appeared on his face. He fought with his eyes closed. Chapter 634. Combat Master fought with his eyes closed. Yi Wentian and Wei Jiang were stunned. What kind of trickery was this? Could this be some kind of secret art? That's right. His eyes were closed, and he had a difficult expression on his face. It was as if his opponents were too weak, to such an extent that he was reluctant to lay his hands on them. And in a moment, all 9 of his opponents were already lying on the floor. The guard recounted the sight that he had just seen a moment ago. Yi Wentian and Wei Jiang stared at one another. This was possible as well. A clarifying turbidity realm fellow actually defeated 9 consonant spirit realm with his eyes closed, and even felt troubled at his opponents being too weak for him. The heck, are you sure you aren't telling us a joke? It's true. The guard's face flushed in agitation. He knew that no one would believe his story, but it was the absolute truth. To fight against a stronger opponent without any difficulty, could it be? Jiang Wei narrowed his eyes. Has Wei Shi thought of something? Yi Wentian asked. After a moment of hesitation, Wei Jiang slowly said, Has your Majesty ever heard of Combat Master? Do you mean the sub-occupation of master teachers which specializes in fighting, Combat Master? Yi Wentian asked. That's right. Wei Jiang nodded his head. While master teachers are known to be unrivaled among those of the same cultivation realm, their primary purpose is still to educate and nurture experts, thus strengthening the might of the human race. However, to fight against otherworldly demons and other forces that threaten the human race, we need a fighting force of the highest tier. As such, the sub-occupation Combat Master was born. Combat Master is a branch of master teachers that specializes in combat. While they could be considered as master teachers as well, there's a huge difference between them and a typical master teacher. For example, master teachers would require a fixed number of supporting occupations to be promoted to the next rank, while combat masters have no such requirement. As long as they can pass a combat examination, they will be promoted to the next rank. Of course, the difficulty of the combat examination is staggering as well. Among 10,000 master teachers, it would be hard to tell if even a single one could pass such an examination. As such, most combat masters possess a unique constitution or special bloodlines that grant them innately superior fighting prowess. And given how this Zhongshe was able to fight 9 consonant spirit realm experts despite being at clarifying turbidity realm, could it be possible that he possesses the talent to become a combat master? Wei Jiang's eyes gleamed in excitement. If the statistics of becoming a master teacher were 1 in 10,000, the statistics of becoming a combat master would be 1 in 10,000 master teachers. Every single one of them could be said to be truly invincible in their tier, and they possessed the strength to challenge even those stronger than them. Despite the millenniums of history behind Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, the number of master teachers who had been promoted to combat masters could be counted with one's fingers. If a combat master could emerge from Huanyu Empire, the entire empire would prosper because of the individual. Now that you speak of it, it might really be possible. Yi Wentian froze for a moment before his eyes slowly widened. Let's hurry over to take a look. If it's true, this is great news for our Huanyu Empire. Wei Jiang stood up and hurriedly walked over to the Crown Prince's eastern palace. Yi Wentian also quickly got up and hurried over. Exhaling a deep breath, Zhongxian clapped his hands and shook his head. At this moment, the 9 master teachers from Fengyuan, Qianfeng, and Zhuyu were lying on the floor, moaning in pain. Actually, without the Library of Heaven's Path, given Zhongxian's superior soul cultivation, the 9 of them still wouldn't be a match for him nevertheless. However, since the other party had flaws he could exploit, there was no reason for him not to do so. You all lost. Ignoring the injured group, Zhongxian turned his sights to Luo Zhao and the other pavilion masters and said, "Now, all 5 of the Lake Eyes belong to our Hongfeng Empire." Luo Zhao, Feng Yu, and Chen Yu staggered. At this moment, they felt as though they were going mad. Those were the top 3 in their respective master-teacher tournament. In order to raise their strength, they even bought a consonant spirit pill for each of them. And yet, the 9 of them couldn't even rival a clarifying turbidity realm cultivator. This should have been an easy win for them, and yet, they didn't even manage to nick the other party's clothes. They thought that their alliance could allow them to push all of the bad things to Hongfeng Empire, but in the end, it simply left them without any Lake Eyes at all. What the hell was this? The more they thought about it, the more stifled they felt. If only they had known earlier, they would have never created such a farce. If they had just gone down the conventional route, they would have at least gotten a Lake Eye. Putting aside how their plan had failed utterly, every member of their team, be it the elderly or the young, were also thoroughly wounded on top of that. Their faces had swollen to almost double the size. How were they supposed to face the others like that? After a long moment of silence, Yi Qian coughed and spoke up. Cough cough. Zhongshe, Luoshe, and the others meant no harm. They only did these in hopes of obtaining the best for their juniors. No matter what, Hongfeng Empire is an ally of Huanyu Empire and the other vassal states. Since there are 5 Lake Eyes and only 3 people in your group, why don't you give the remaining 2 to them? This way, they can at least be accountable to their countrymen when they return. If 3 vassal states that traveled all the way here were to return empty-handed without getting any of the slots, it would surely cause great discontent. He wouldn't be able to explain this farce to his father and pavilion master Wei either. But Hongfeng Empire did win all of the slots through fair means. All parties had agreed to it, so it was inappropriate for him to advise Zhongshe otherwise. As such, he felt extremely embarrassed. Give 2 Lake Eyes to them. That's fine by us. However, the master teachers from the other empires are to share the Lake Eyes with each other as well so that our members can enjoy a Lake Eye each. Knowing that he would be putting the Crown Prince in a spot if he were to claim all of the Lake Eyes, Zhongxian nodded his head in agreement. Since there were only 3 of them, 3 Lake Eyes were sufficient. Rather than letting the other 2 go to waste and potentially incurring the hostility of everyone else here, he might as well generously give them away. Thank you. Not expecting the other party to be so agreeable to the matter, Yi Qian nodded his head in approval. He gestured for a guard to come over and instructed, "Bring me that gold-scaled armor." Yes. The guard turned around and left, and not too long later, he brought a resplendent armor back. This is a spirit intermediate tier pinnacle armor crafted by the skin of a transcendent mortal 6-dan avalanche gold-scaled beast. In awe of Zhongshe's magnanimity, I would like to give this to you. Yi Qian waved his hand, and the guard immediately passed the armor over. This? How can I accept this? Zhong Xian was taken aback. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Yi Qian waved his hands. I will be embarrassed if you do not accept it. Thank you, Your Highness. Knowing that this was the compensation the other party was giving him for the 2 lake eyes, Zhong Xian knew it would be inappropriate for him to turn it down. Thus, he nodded and placed the armor in his storage ring. Zhong Shi, you have my gratitude for giving the 2 lake eyes to us. Here are 2 consonant spirit pills. I hope you can accept them as a token of goodwill. Luo Zhao also stepped forward and passed a jade bottle over. Since even the Crown Prince had offered a gift as compensation, they couldn't possibly just sit still and accept the 2 lake eyes without any reciprocation. The 3 vassal states had bought a total of 11 consonant spirit pills. After giving 1 each to their men, there were 2 remaining. Yuan. Grabbing the pills, Zhong Xian casually put them in his storage ring. Luo Zhao, Feng Yu, and Chen Yu had accepted the bet and lost fair and square. If the other party were to refuse to give them the lake eyes, there was nothing they could do. Under such circumstances, it was indeed a great favor for them to be given 2 lake eyes. Taking 2 consonant spirit pills from them in return was nothing much in comparison. Besides, accepting the consonant spirit pills also meant that the other party had already repaid their debt, so it was beneficial from the other 3's point of view as well. As for Zhong Xian, he had no interest in having them indebted to him either. Since the distribution of the slots and lake eyes have been determined, I hereby declare the start of the banquet. I hope that everyone can enjoy themselves tonight. Yi Qian gestured grandly, and beautiful court ladies immediately came in with many delicacies in hand. This crown prince was indeed a man who knew how to enjoy himself. Every single dish in the banquet was worth a huge sum, and this entire feast could probably leave even the wealthy bankrupt. Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai, you should take these consonant spirit pills. Consume them after we return from the banquet. Flicking his wrist, Zhong Xian passed the 2 consonant spirit pills that he had just received from Luo Shi and the others to them. While this pill could raise a consonant spirit realm expert's cultivation by a small realm unconditionally, this effect could be said to be negligible to him as long as he could gather sufficient consonant spirit realm cultivation technique. Achieving a breakthrough was not much different from eating and drinking to him. It would be a waste for him to consume it, so he might as well put it to better use. You're giving them to us? Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai were taken aback. It was not like they didn't know how valuable the pill was. To think that the other party would be giving the 2 pills received to them, this. Yuan, quickly raise your cultivation before entering the cleansing lake. Don't waste the slot that I've obtained for you all with great difficulty, Zhong Xian said calmly. Thank you, Zhong Shi. The duo's eyes turned red, and they quickly bowed in gratitude. While the others were scheming against one another to obtain the best resources for their cultivation, Zhong Shi was generously offering such a valuable gift to them, and this gesture left them touched from the bottom of their hearts. Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai was still thinking of pitting it out with the other party to see who was better in the Master Teacher Academy. Only now did they realize that they didn't just lose out to the other party in terms of cultivation, even their magnanimity was paling far in comparison to the other party. If the thoughts of the duo were to be known by Luo Shi and the others, they would surely burst into tears. This fellow, magnanimous. Magnanimous your head. Can't you see how badly we were done in? Those slots and lake eyes should have been ours, and yet we still had to thank the other party humbly for them. You actually call such a despicable and shameless man magnanimous? Outside the Crown Prince's Eastern Palace. Your Majesty, Wei Shi. The 2 figures who walked over from the distance left the guards on duty leaping in shock. I'll inform His Highness right now to have him welcome Your Majesty and Wei Shi. The 2 most authoritative men in Huanyu Empire had come to visit late at night abruptly. There was no one who wouldn't be scared out of their wits. There's no need for that, you should just continue remaining on duty. Wei Shi and I are just going in to take a casual look. Yi Wentian waved his hands casually before walking in with Wei Jiang. As the duo navigated through the Eastern Palace, Yi Wentian asked, if Zhong Shi really possesses the talent to become a combat master, what should we do? What else can we do? Of course, we should immediately report it to the Master Teacher Academy and have them groom him specially. This kind of talent is extremely important to the Master Teacher Pavilion. You should be aware of it as well. Wei Jiang said with a grim expression. Yi Wentian nodded. While he wasn't a master teacher, he did know a thing or two about combat masters. Dubbed as the emperors of combat among the master teachers, if Zhongshe were to become an official combat master, his standing might immediately soar above that of the principal of Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. Just that, the conditions to becoming a combat master are extremely stringent. One has to go through many difficult tests to be qualified as one. How can we ensure that he's really capable of becoming a combat master? Yi Wentian frowned. There were many specific tests that a master teacher had to undergo before he could be officially accepted as a combat master. It was an extremely troublesome process. Let's take a look first before deciding on anything. Wei Jiang hesitated for a moment before speaking. Halfway through his words, he suddenly heard footsteps ahead of him. Taking a closer look, he saw 3 figures just ahead of him. Getting a clear glimpse at their appearance, Yi Wentian quickly rushed forward. Yi Wentian pays respect to 6th Princess. I see that Luo Shi and Xing Shi are here as well. They were no other than 6th Princess Yu Fei, Luo Chichi, and Xing Yuan, who were here for the banquet. So, it's Emperor Wentian. I just happen to have something I need to talk to you about. Upon seeing that it was Yi Wentian, Princess Fei's eyebrows shot up. How in the world do you govern your Huanyu Empire? If you're sick of your job, just give the word. Chapter 635. Paying respect to Zhong Laosha. Yi Wentian leaped in shock at those words, and cold sweat immediately started trickling down his back. He might be the emperor of Huanyu Empire, but before the other party, he dared not pull his weight. Huanyu Empire was only one of the many Tier 2 empires beneath Hongyuan Tier 1 Empire. If the other party really wanted to replace him with someone else, not even Wei Jiang would be able to help him. Pardon me, but may I know the reason behind your highness's anger? I might not be talented, but I have worked hard in governing this country. If your highness thinks that I might have failed in certain aspects, I'll definitely do my best to correct my flaws so as to not let down Hongyuan Empire's trust in me. Yi Wentian quickly said. This 6th princess was still fine earlier this morning. Why would she be chastising him all of the sudden? Humph, to think that there would be hooligans even within the capital. Recalling that shameless young man, Princess Fei gritted her teeth in anger. To think that a princess like her would actually lose a bet and become the maid of another, this was truly the greatest humiliation she had ever suffered. Hooligan? Yi Wentian was taken aback. He thought that the other party was dissatisfied with his governance, but hooligan, what was with that? What kind of hooligan could possibly provoke this princess like that? Indeed. It's a young man in his 20s. Just from that shameless look on his face, one can tell that he's no good person. I met him in the mystical treasure hall. Princess Fei said. Mystical treasure hall? All right, I'll send my men to look into the matter right now. Knowing that the other party's dissatisfaction didn't originate from a problem in his governance, Yi Wentian heaved a sigh of relief. He hurriedly clasped his fist and bowed. When I find him, I'll capture him and send him over to 6th Princess so that you can deal with him as you deem fit. Who wants to deal with him? Princess Fei stomped her feet in frustration. Did I tell you to capture him? Yi Wentian suddenly felt his head blowing up. He had no idea how to respond to the other party's words. He had long heard that Princess Fei had an eccentric personality, but to think that there would come a day that he would be subjected to it. He was the emperor of Huanyu Empire, a transcendent mortal 8-dan pinnacle expert. To be chastised to his face as though a child, just the thought of him left him lightheaded. But even if someone were to inflate his guts, he would never dare to talk back to the other party. Putting aside the other party's identity as the 6th princess of Hongyuan Empire, just the fact that she was accepted as the direct disciple by the principal already made her a figure that few would dare to offend. How can an emperor like you not know his own men? Flinging her hands, Princess Fei harumphed coldly. Yi Wentian looked as though he had eaten a bitter gourd. Huanyu capital extends for several hundred kilometers, and the population exceeds 100 million. No matter how formidable I am, I can't possibly know every last one of my citizens. All right. Seeing the situation turn awkward, Luo Chichi stepped forward and smiled. Emperor Wentian, Feiya just has an eccentric personality, so you need not take this to heart. It's truly nothing much, so you need to worry about it. After which, she turned to the lady beside her and sent a telepathic message over. Didn't you get Yi Qian to look into the matter already? When he finally uncovers that fellow, I'll help you get back at him for you and win you back. Princess Feiya was already an adult, but she still retained some of her childishness. Sometimes, her behavior could really leave one at a loss as to cry or to be mad. Losing a bet and becoming another's maid wasn't an honorable affair, so you shouldn't be going around telling others about it. Besides, it's your own personal matter. Why are you venting your anger on Emperor Wentian instead? All right. Hearing the promise from her best friend, Princess Feiya felt her rage subsiding a little. Ignoring the emperor, she puffed up her chest and said, "Let's go to the banquet." Yuan. Luo Chichi and Xing Yuan hurried forward. Yi Wentian and Wei Jiang glanced at one another and shook their heads together. Afterward, they followed behind the trio to the banquet hall as well. The sixth princess was famous for her eccentric personality. It was fortunate that his son, Yi Qian, didn't have any intention of courting her. Otherwise, he would probably suffer a great deal. Putting everything aside, Xing Yuan had pursued her for many years already, but he was still subjected to the rapid emotional changes of the latter. As the group over here headed for the banquet hall, the guard at the entrance took a detour, rushed to the banquet hall, and informed Yi Qian of this matter privately. "Father and Wei Shi are here." Sixth princess, too? Why are they together? Taken aback, Yi Qian quickly stood up and announced, "Everyone, sixth princess, my father, and Wei Shi will be arriving very soon, so let's stand up to welcome them. Sixth princess is coming. I didn't expect Wei Shi and His Majesty to be coming here too." Upon hearing that the sixth princess of Hongyuan Empire and the others were coming, everyone immediately stopped what they were doing and stood up. Just like the others, Zhongxian also got to his feet and turned his gaze to the doors. At that moment, a few figures walked into the hall. The one leading the way was a lady dressed in a purple dress which accentuated her beautiful figure. Paired with pale, smooth skin, her beauty was indescribable. She is the sixth princess. How beautiful. I think I'm falling in love with her. What should I do? Falling in love with her? Why don't you take a good look at yourself? With a face swollen like a pig's head, I think you should pray that your appearance won't disgust her instead. Talk about yourself. Your nose is entirely crooked, you aren't anywhere better than me. Upon seeing the beautiful lady, the eyes of the master teachers in the room suddenly glowed in excitement. The sixth princess resembled a goddess who had stepped out of a painting, and her presence sent the blood of young men running. Just that, with the exception of the crown prince and a few others, all of the young men in the banquet hall had been beaten up badly by Zhongxian, and the sight of a group of disfigured men staring at one in agitation seemed more like a scene of horror instead. Sixth young mistress? Sixth princess? Zhongxian was also taken aback. He never thought that the sixth princess would actually be the sixth young mistress whom he met at Mystical Treasure Hall. It was no wonder why she could afford to take out several hundred middle-tier spirit stones in a single go. On the other hand, as soon as the sixth princess and the others entered the banquet hall, they were immediately met with bruised and swollen faces, and this left them confounded. Shouldn't a banquet involving master teachers be refined and dignified? Why did all of them look as though they had come from a butchery instead then? The swelling on their faces was so severe that their eyes could hardly open, and some of them even had an arm sling hanging before their chest. What was going on? In fact, why were the 5-star master teachers in the room severely wounded as well? Sixth princess, it's him. Just as Princess Feiya was completely baffled by the scene before her, a voice suddenly sounded by her ear. Frowning, she traced the other party's finger, and the sight she saw immediately caused her to stagger. It was the fellow who nearly angered her to death back at the Mystical Treasure Hall. He was actually here. The other party was holding a wine glass in his hand casually, creating a leisurely atmosphere around him. Chichi, it's that fellow. Gritting her teeth tightly, Princess Faya turned to point out her mortal enemy to her close friend, only to be stunned by the sight before her once more. The eyes of her cold and composed close friend were actually shining in agitation, as though they had caught sight of a treasure chest. Princess Faya was stunned. Could her close friend be fond of men who were beaten up? It's him. Amidst her confusion, Luo Chichi suddenly pointed her finger toward a young man. That. Chichi, I know that he's my enemy, but surely you need not get so agitated. Upon realizing that it wasn't due to some bizarre taste in men, Princess Faya became even more speechless. I was the one who was forced to become the other party's maid. The one who should be getting angry and agitated should be me, right? Then why are you getting so excited all of the sudden? Perplexed, Princess Faya was just about to ask about the matter when her close friend suddenly started charging up to that hateful fellow. Chichi, even if you want to teach him a lesson for my stead, you need to take note of the occasion. Princess Faya nearly fainted on the spot. Chichi has always been a reliable and dependable figure. Why would she suddenly get agitated and act so recklessly? There are so many master teachers in the room. If she were to teach the other party a lesson here, won't the matter of me being the maid of the other party be exposed as well? Just as Princess Faya was about to rush up to stop her, her close friend was already standing right before the hateful fellow. Following which, her close friend clasped her fist and bowed respectfully. Student Chichi pays respect to Zhong Larosha. What? All of the words Princess Faya wanted to say suddenly jammed in her mouth, and her eyes widened in shock. What is this situation? Aren't you going to teach him a lesson in my stead? Student Zhong Larosha? Could it be that this hateful fellow is that refined, magnanimous, intelligent, and awe-inspiring young talent you spoke of? But he is a shameless hooligan, right? Why would he suddenly turn into such an impressive figure in your mouth? What is with this situation? Princess Faya's face twitched intensely, and she nearly burst into tears. She was still thinking of having her close friend teach that fellow a lesson, but who knew that the latter would betray her as soon as the both of them met? Where's your loyalty to your friend? Shouldn't you at least show some hesitation in your betrayal? On the other hand, the others in the hall petrified instantly. The lady who's with sixth princess should be Luo Chichi Luosha. The famed ice beauty of the Master Teacher Academy is actually Zhongsha's student. What's going on? Luo Zhao and the others were aware of Luo Chichi's nickname. While the latter might be beautiful, she was known for being cold and distant. And yet, she was currently bowing excitedly before a person who was even younger than her, addressing him as teacher. Did reality really need to be so exaggerated? Wu Zhen and Xing Yuan's mouths twitched at that sight. In terms of familiarity, they were relatively closer to Luo Chichi than the others in the room, and they knew much more than about her as well. Hongyuan Academy Apothecary School's most talented genius, as well as a cultivator possessing a fighting prowess far above them, she was ranked in the top few amongst grade 2 students, and her fame far exceeded the sixth princess in the academy. For a proud phoenix like her to actually acknowledge Zhongsha as her teacher. Are my eyes playing tricks on me, or are the both of them pulling our legs? Oh, little Qi, it's you. Why are you here? Zhongxian was taken aback to see little Qi here. Wasn't this lass at the apothecary guild earlier? But after giving it some thought, he suddenly came to a realization. The fact she came from the headquarters of the local apothecary guild meant that she came from Hongyuan Tier 1 Empire. On top of that, given that she was a master teacher as well, it was highly likely that she was a group with the sixth princess and Wu Zhen. It was precisely due to these people that he had to fight over the cleansing lake slots that should have belonged to him in the first place. Little Qi. Dang Lang. The wine glass in Wu Zhen's hand fell to the ground. The sixth princess and Xing Yuan suddenly felt their legs turn weak, and they nearly fell to the ground. Luo Chichi nodded before hurriedly introducing her close friend to her teacher. I came here with my friends. Teacher, this is Hongyuan Empire's sixth princess, Yu Fei. Yuan, I've met her before. Zhongxian nodded. I see, so your name is Yu Fei. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and pour me a cup of wine. Zhongshe, you do know that she's the 6th princess of Hongyuan Empire. Hearing Zhongshe's words, Yi Qian nearly fainted on the spot. Yi Wentian also found his vision turning dark. Even he dared not breathe loudly before the 6th princess. What is a 4-star master teacher like you acting so arrogantly for? Chapter 636, Silence Restraint You. Princess Feiya nearly spurted a mouthful of fresh blood. Pour you a cup of wine? Pour your head. Didn't I redeem myself for 10 days already? I'm not your maid now, all right? I know. Zhongshen nodded. We've met previously, and we can be considered friends, right, 6th princess? Glaring at Zhongshen with a look that exclaimed that she would strangle the other party if she could, Yu Feiya clenched her teeth tightly and replied, of course. She had no other choice. By saying that she was his friend, the other party was already sparing her dignity. If the other party were to say that she was his maid, she would really die of shame. I'll pour it for you. Yu Feiya stomped her way to the closest bottle and poured Zhongshen a bottle of wine while insulting the latter in her mind. If she could, she would really want to skin this hateful man alive. But of course, she would never do that. She did lose the bet fair and square, and her master-teacher emblem was the other party's hostage as well. She couldn't do anything even if she wanted to. All right. Seeing the reluctance on the other party's face, Zhongshen shook his head. Back then, when we were having the bet, you tried to make me kneel before you. So what if you're a princess? This is just returning a little bit of the favor to you. Teacher. Feiya is my good friend, so is it possible? Seeing that her good friend had turned so red that she might explode at any moment, Luo Chichi didn't know whether she should laugh or cry at this situation. She could never have expected that the rotten fellow her close friend wanted to strangle so badly would actually be her apothecary teacher. She regarded the both of them highly, so she wished to resolve the conflict between them. She's your friend? All right then, I'll give her 10 days off. Zhongshen nodded. On the other hand, Princess Feiya thought that with her good friend intervening in her stead, the other party would drop the matter entirely. Who knew that it would only be 10 days? Her face immediately flushed in anger, and she raged, Chichi, there's no need to plead with him. Isn't it just spirit stones? It's not like I don't have any. Zhongshen's eyes gleamed as he said, it's good that you have spirit stones to repay me. Since that's the case, I believe there's no need for me to offer you any discount. The 10 days off shall be voided. 10 days was equivalent to around 700 middle-tier spirit stones. If he could save it, he should definitely do it. You. Princess Feiya nearly spurted blood on the spot. Teacher is just jesting with you. Calm down. Seeing that her good friend was on the verge of collapsing from anger, Luo Chichi shook her head and said, right, didn't you say that you want to learn pill forging from Zhong Laoshe? He's right here. Humph. I'd rather learn from a pig than from him. Princess Feiya gritted her teeth. All right then. Knowing that it was impossible to resolve the conflict between her good friend and Zhong Laoshe at the moment, she could only try to pacify both of them in the future. With the arrival of the guests, the banquet resumed. However, with Emperor Yi Wentian and Wei Shi in the room, as well as the 6th princess who could just erupt at any moment, the atmosphere grew visibly tenser, and the merry atmosphere from before dampened. A while later, Luo Zhao and the others couldn't stand it any longer and bade their farewell. Considering how their entire group was beaten up so badly, they had to return quickly and recuperate. Otherwise, considering how the cleansing lake was opening tomorrow, the 2 slots that they had might just go to waste. Your Highness, we'll be taking our leave as well. Seeing the others leave, Hongsha also stood up and clasped his fist. Wait a moment. Just as the group was about to leave, Wei Jiang stepped forward and approached them. Wei Shi. When the group entered, Crown Prince Yi Qian had introduced the other party to be the pavilion master of the Huanyu Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, a 5-star high-tier master teacher. Not daring to pull his weight before such a figure, Zhongshen clasped his fist and greeted him. Zhongshe, may I speak to you for a moment? Wei Jiang smiled. It's my pleasure to do so. Seeing that the other party wanted to talk to him privately, Zhongxian smiled in response. Gesturing for Hong Shi and the others to return to their living quarters first, Zhongxian followed behind Wei Shi, and the pair walked into a room. May I ask if Zhongshi is a combat master? There was a formation set up in the room that prevented anyone from eavesdropping on the conversation inside. Combat master? What is that? Zhongxian was perplexed. Combat master was a higher-order secret of the master-teacher pavilion. As such, the books that Zhongxian had access to didn't have any details on them, so he wasn't too clear on what it was. It's a sub-occupation of master-teacher that specializes in combat. While explaining the matter regarding combat masters to the other party, Wei Jiang carefully examined the other party's expression. Noting that the other party didn't seem to be putting on a front, he felt a little perplexed. He did harbor some doubts that the other party was a combat master before. After all, how else could he possibly defeat 9 cultivators with a cultivation higher than his? He had seen the pitiful state of the master teachers the other party had beaten up. But while their faces were swollen, and it looked rather appalling on the surface, he could tell that the person who pummeled them went easy on them. As long as they were to apply some medicine to their wounds, they would be as good as new in a day or two. To be able to go easy while fighting 9 master teachers with higher cultivation levels than him, how powerful must he be? There's such a branch of master teacher. Hearing that there was actually a sub-occupation known as combat master, Zhongxian was astonished. He thought that all master teachers were responsible for imparting knowledge to the masses. To think that there would actually be a branch specializing in combat as well. It did intrigue him how master teachers could drive away otherworldly demons when most of them were immobilized just by the killing intent of the latter. What Wei Shi said had addressed his doubts. The ones in charge of defending mankind weren't the average master teachers but a specialized group that possessed superior fighting prowess. Why would Pavilion Master Wei think that I'm a combat master? Zhongxian asked curiously. I heard that you were able to easily defeat 9 other people who possess higher cultivation than you. Wei Jiang replied. I see. Coming to a realization, Zhongxian shook his head. I've only heard of this sub-occupation, so I can't possibly be one of their members. Then, do you have a unique constitution? Wei Jiang asked. The reason why I am able to defeat the 9 of them is because I was able to see through the flaws in their battle techniques and exploit it against them, Zhongxian replied. It wasn't because of a unique constitution. Speaking of unique constitutions, he had 3 students who possessed them. Honestly speaking, he was a little envious of them. All right then. Seeing the other party admitting that he wasn't a combat master and didn't possess a unique constitution, Wei Jiang was slightly disappointed. If a combat master were to come from Huanyu Empire, it would surely strike its name across the entire world. Unless awakened, a unique constitution was nearly undetectable. Not even a 5-star high-tier master teacher like him would be able to detect it. The duo chatted a little longer, but the questions that Wei Jiang had were all adept sidestepped by Zhongxian. The reason why Zhongxian was able to defeat multiple opponents far above his current cultivation was due to 2 reasons: the library of Heaven's Path and Heaven's Path divine art, and his ability as a soul oracle. But these 2 were secrets that mustn't be made known. As such, despite Wei Jiang's questions, Zhongxian admitted to nothing at all. A moment later, after realizing that it was impossible for him to gather any useful clues from Zhongxian, Wei Jiang could only clasp his fist and bid farewell. I've bothered Zhongshi. Don't worry about it. Zhongxian chuckled lightly in response before walking away. Not too long after Zhongxian left, the door to the room was opened, and Emperor Yi Wentian rushed in with an anxious look. How is it? It's unlikely that he has a unique constitution, but I'm not sure whether he's a combat master or not. Wei Jiang shook his head. Not sure. Yi Wentian was perplexed. After a moment of contemplation, Wei Jiang said, Yuan. To qualify as a combat master, one has to pass through multiple exams. Zhongshi might be able to defeat those with cultivations above him, but I feel that he's still rather lacking in comparison to a real combat master. Forget it, let's not think about it. I'll report this matter to Hongyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion and leave it to Pavilion Master Mo to make a judgment on this matter. With his current standing, He was indeed unqualified to make such judgment. As such, he decided to simply report this matter and allow the headquarters to make a decision on it. Yi Wentian pondered for a moment before nodding his head. Indeed, it would be best for this matter to be reported to the headquarters. Wei Jiang flicked his wrist, and an object that covered his entire palm appeared on his hand. He wrote his report on the object. Then, with a flash of light, the words written disappeared. The effects of a communication token were similar to a communication wall, just smaller in scale, thus allowing one to carry it around easily. Back then, Hongshe also made use of this object to send a message to Mo Gaoyuan. Wang. A few moments after the information was sent over to the other side, the communication token glowed once more. This. Seeing the words on the token, Wei Jiang's eyes narrowed in disbelief. What did Pavilion Master Mo say? Seeing the bewildered expression of his old friend, Yi Wentian frowned. Look. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Wei Jiang passed the communication token over. Yi Wentian lowered his head to look at the message written on the communication token, and he immediately froze in place as well. There was only a single line of words written on the communication token. For the matter regarding Zhongxian, do not discuss, ask, or speak of it. Who? Right after he looked at the words on the communication token faded. A silence restraint. Could it be that Pavilion Master Mo is acquainted with Zhongshe? Yi Wentian narrowed his eyes in shock. A silence restraint was usually a form of respect a lower-ranked master teacher would show to a higher-ranked master teacher. Given that Zhongshe was only at 4-star, why would Pavilion Master Mo issue such an order? Could it be that Pavilion Master Mo knew Zhongshe beforehand? Otherwise, why would such a situation occur? He must have known the other party in advance. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to give such a response so quickly. Wei Jiang nodded in agreement. While Mo Gaoyuan did pay Myriad Kingdom Alliance a visit, he left right after paying Yangshe a visit. Other than Zhongxian, Hongshe, and a few other people, no one was aware of the matter. Wei Jiang might be Hongshe's teacher, but he wasn't informed of this matter either. Then, what should we do? Yi Wentian asked. Since Pavilion Master Mo has made such a decision, let's not speak about it. In any case, Zhongshe is going to enter Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. If my memory serves me well, the academy has a combat master selection once every 5 years. It should be starting very soon. If he does possess potential in that aspect, he will surely do well then, Wei Jiang said. Yi Wentian nodded his head and sighed. Combat master selection? Now that you speak of it, there is indeed such a matter. However, for an outsider to join the ranks of the combat masters, he must be a half 5-star master teacher at minimum. Considering how Zhongxian is only at clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle currently, who knows how long it would take for him to reach consonant spirit realm pinnacle? Wei Jiang nodded. Regardless of when he can qualify as a combat master, since Pavilion Master Mo has already sent a silence restraint, let's just remain silent and watch on. You're right, Yi Wentian replied. While the duo was having their discussion behind closed doors, Zhongxian found himself intercepted as soon as he left the Crown Prince's Eastern Palace. Zhongshe, I would like to talk to you privately. A slender figure blocked his path. 6th Princess. Upon realizing the other party's identity, Zhongxian frowned. It was the 6th princess whom he had taken as his maid. Why was she looking for him at such an ungodly hour? Yuan. This isn't a convenient place, follow me. Princess Feiya harumphed before dashing off in one direction. But a moment later, she realized that there was no movement behind her. Perplexed, she turned her head around and her body immediately shook in rage. The young man didn't follow behind her at all. The other party simply placed his hands into the pockets before walking in a completely different direction. You. Why didn't you follow me? She hurriedly turned around and harumphed angrily. I'm not interested in whatever you have to say. Zhongxian shrugged. You. Princess Feiya's breathing grew agitated, and yet again, she found herself on the verge of erupting. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.